Welcome to Cullah number 35. I got Sleepy Gaucho
Hey.
over here. What's up, dude?
Nothing much, man. It's a good day in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it is a good day.
It is.
It's like sunny and 50.
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah. Some tea.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Clink it. Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
I figured it was fitting timing, seeing as we have a show
In a couple days.
in a couple of days, which is a strange thing.
It is. It's felt, it's kind of been waves of strangeness, you know. Certain, I guess, kind of points where it felt okay, but I don't know. It is strange, right?
Yeah, and things are like worse now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
But in some ways, like the case numbers are worse. But in Milwaukee, I don't know. I used to follow this shit like every day, like when it first came out. And then I was just like, I can't. Once there was straight up quarantine, like everyone was like, yeah, no.
I've found my perfect amount of time almost for it all is whenever I'm in the car, put on the radio, NPR, you know, and just those little bursts of, you know, they're probably cycling through the same thing over and over anyway, but that's almost enough to take in and feels like I'm getting some of the relevant information.
Yeah, it's definitely enough.
But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think we are in the thick of kind of the worst.
The second wave.
Yeah, and geographically speaking too, like, you know, worst country and third worst state, fourth worst state.
Is that what it is with case numbers?
Something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
It's
We're up there with Florida
high.
now.
So
I wish our temperatures were up there with Florida.
yeah.
Hey, Sleep Steak, how's it going? But what was it too on the nose to do all the advertising and stuff as with the plague doctors? I was like, if we're gonna do this show in the middle of a pandemic, it has to be on Halloween. Yeah, because I feel like that's the only time.
I mean, I just instantly thought masquerade. You know,
right.
Most people are wearing a mask anyway. I mean, I think people always forget too that these shows are planned, you know, weeks. I mean, I don't even know when we first talked about it, but it's always before, you know, stuff in the moment of the show is kind of happening. So I think the moral is that this year it's pretty tough to coordinate anything. You know, you can try, but dude, something's probably gonna pop up.
I mean, this whole show has been an uphill battle the whole way. And there's been multiple moments where it could all have just fallen apart, like easily. Mm-hmm. Just like, even just recently, even this week. Yeah. Just like a couple days ago, they were like, oh yeah, new ordinances for bars and for, specifically it seemed like everyone's Halloween plans, like they were targeting. But luckily the venue that we're at, No Studios, has been like ahead of it the whole time. And they've been cooperating with the city, and they've already, like, when the city was like, yeah, everyone can open up and be at 50% capacity, they were like, yeah, no, we're going to do 25% capacity. Yeah,
so
they were already planning that, and so it was already, which is what the rules are now. Mm-hmm. Unless, I heard though, like, at least this was the general manager was saying that some of their first team meetings, they were hearing that this new city ordinance is like, if you don't follow their rules, or you don't submit a plan and get it approved and stuff, then you're automatically only can allow 10 people in your building, no matter what size, no matter what capacity, no matter what. It's just like 10. And
they might have not done that.
Well, no, they were.
Okay.
Like, but it just seems like that's like the.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
No, they're working with them. They have the plan. They were like, it's almost all approved. Like they're just a little, like they had one last exchange they had to do. They're like, we're not worried about it. But
well, I'm glad they're on top of it. I mean,
they have to, dude. Yeah. It's like,
yeah,
they're literally a social club.
Yeah, you know I mean, what I was gonna say is just kind of, I don't know, the places where rules seem to be kind of brushed aside. You know, like bars in general. I mean, I haven't been to a bar really during this whole thing, but I just don't understand, you know, if you don't have a big space and enough space for people to distance, and you're using your face, you know, to be there. So it seems tough, but I think all you can do is kind of be smart, take the measures you can take, and like we weren't at this point, you know, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago when we started kind of talking about it, and summer was.
I was planning on it for a while.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I heard,
I mean, you do this yearly, right? You've been doing.
This is the second year. Okay. I plan to, because it's literally the halfway point of my album. So it's like the perfect.
It's good. Yeah, it's a good time.
It's the perfect time. It's just literally across the graph from Easter, which is like when I was born, around that time. So it's just like the other side. Instead of going from spring to summer, it's going from fall to winter. Gotcha. You know, so it's like the 6 months there, and it's like, I don't know. It's a cool, like I've been calling it Samhain, which is, I mean, I sneak it in there because I want people to like know more about it, but like I also have to call it a Halloween masquerade or whatever. Like just throw all the buzzwords at people, because no one knows what it is. But it's essentially it's an Irish and Scottish and even English and Welsh, like, would celebrate it. It's basically, you know, what we know of Halloween, like All Souls Day, All Saints Day is the same. It's the day after. It's the day when all the dead are among us.
You know, going back to like, you know, kind of Carl Jung archetypal stories, and I mean, you know, Day of the Dead, Halloween, and that, you know, there's kind of these commonalities, I think, throughout the world, you know, that
it's not a coincidence, and it's not a coincidence that it's happening right as winter's coming, you know, when it's like, oh shit, like all the dead people, like
things are dying, you know?
Things are dying, and like, and you're getting in touch more with death, like you're getting prepared for it, you're getting ready for it, right? Like whether or not there are real spirits that are there, and depending on what you believe in and stuff, like most religions will have some sense or even, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I think in terms of all that stuff, whether or not they're there among us in spirit, whatever that means. I don't really know, but I like the mythology. I like what it represents. Like you're saying, the archetypal meanings behind it. Like to me, and it does feel weird. Like I agree. Like it's a weird time. Like, and
isn't it supposedly a full moon too?
Oh yeah, dude, it is.
I'm not.
It's a full moon earlier that day.
Okay.
Like at 2 p.m.
So I mean, it sounds.
And it's a blue moon. So this is literally once in a blue moon.
So many.
That's what I was told by the internet.
For so many
Someone
reasons.
on some like Instagram hippie on the internet was like, it's a blue moon, and I was like, oh, it must be true.
No, I feel you. I mean, I'm glad it's happening, and it's something special. I mean, I think the last show I played was first or second week of March, you know, kind of right before things got shut down. And I mean, I didn't know at the time, like, oh yeah, I think at first I thought, you know, oh yeah, maybe a couple weeks
SARS.
or months, you know, and
it won't even get here. That's what I thought at the beginning. I was like, it won't even come here.
Yeah, but you know, we are here, and I don't know, we have this show, and I kind of do see it as, with the winter coming, as probably this last pocket of something, you know, even with just being outside in general, and
that's what I felt about it too. I was like, and that's why I was talking to Ryan here, and he's like, dude, I don't know, like COVID and shit. I'm like, dude, this is what we do. Like, this is all we do. Like, this is what we have to do. Like, things, you can go into the grocery store and there's 100 people grocery shopping and no one cares because it's like, oh, it's essential. But, I mean, when people gather, that first gathering, like, that I went to of people, of music, it was just like, everyone was so excited and we're
a PA, you know, loud music, something, different, you know, than...
And there's, like you said, the only thing you can do is do it as safe as possible, and that's what we've been doing all along. And it's super limited capacity, 25% capacity. You know, like I was just there yesterday. There's tons of seating all around, like that everyone's going to be distant. There's a very small like group of
reference points.
Right.
To be like, oh yeah, this is my.
People are just going to chill. They're going to be able to like have a drink and sit down, like wait in a socially distant line, get your drink, sit down, enjoy some music, you know, and that it's only a few hours long. It's like the whole thing is them just like justifying it, you know. It's gonna be fun.
It's only a few hours.
Whereas, well, the only reason I say that is because the original plan, like, I didn't have it held. I was going to hit them up and be like, "Yo, hold this," but COVID hit. But then, like, once the first curve was flattened or whatever, and things were starting to like open back up again, or at least like look like they were opening back up, and they announced that they were opening back up again and like to the public, and then I hit them up. I was like, "Halloween?" They're like, "Dude, no one wants to be here." I was like, "Okay," but I originally knew, like, from last Halloween, someone I like saw online, someone was saying that the next Halloween, not only is it a blue moon, a full moon, Halloween on a Saturday, it's also daylight savings.
Oh man.
So like literally an extra hour of partying. You know, that was my thought. I was like, shit, we'll be able to be in no studios till 3 a.m. technically, but not anymore. We're not there till 3 a.m.
No, I feel you, and I totally remember kind of the fall being that first, you know, I mean, even kind of reminiscing booking shows even seems distant, but I remember it was like, fall. Maybe the fall.
Maybe August.
You know, and I think I talked
now it's
to
like
someone,
maybe next August.
Yeah, I think like major acts are booking like fall of 2021 or something is
but
what they're
have to
starting at.
Yeah, like,
which is probably even going to get pushed back. So I mean, it's
they do that because they have a whole agencies, and those guys are tour booking agents and things who literally that's their job, and if they need a book, or they're fucked too.
Yeah,
like they're just. I saw that right when COVID hit. There's bands, and they were like 3 months, and then 3 months go by, another 3 months, like literally rescheduling tours 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and you're like, well, are you not seeing what's happening?
I was like, I can't. Well, I was like, that must be an agent or like or managers or someone doing that. Like, I don't know. To me, the thought of like spending all that time.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. You know, it's such a cutthroat thing that it's like. You just gotta hold the place. Yeah, you know? Just gotta hold. You know how many times you hit up a venue. It's like we got like 5 holds. We'll put you on 6th hold for that day.
Hold, yeah.
Like, well, I mean, is it even worth doing that?
That always blew my mind. That's only happened to me once or twice.
Just the magic of what makes the holds get to where they are, and like, okay, this hold is the one now. After 5-6 holds, all right, let's go with it.
I wonder if they just pick, right? They probably just like,
I mean,
that's a way to have like,
you know,
right. It's a way to have like a bunch of acts. And then when something falls through, they go, oh, actually that act would be perfect. Like, even though they were the 4th hold, let's just like ask them. Cause who's going to be like, I need hold transparency. Like I'm only.
Can we go with the general kind of like golden, you know, hold rules that are universal here?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Well, how long have you been, touring?
Well, I was just about to bring that up because I know you've started to do more and book stuff. I mean, with this act, I've gotten a couple kind of like solo tours in, and Will Hansen's joined me on, you know, a couple as well, but they've always been kind of, you know, smaller,
just little spurts,
just limited in some sort of way.
3 to 4 things, or like.
Well, yeah, it's sometimes, you know, under 10 dates, you know, and always trying to fill in some sort of date. But I played in other bands where I kind of toured a bit, and Thompson Springs, they're out of Chicago. They're good guys. They I went on the road with them and kind of, learned a bit of, you know, what the road's like. But I think, this year was kind of just starting to get into the groove of like, okay, like how many tours can I fit in this year versus like, hopefully get 1 tour or something in, you know, where it was like, okay, so I think it's unfortunate, you know, timing for a lot of people is so many things this year falling apart, right? But yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing to do yourself, and until you get some help, you just kind of, emailing people, right, and trying to put something together. And yeah,
I mean, I think that's the way to do it, though. Like, I was always so hesitant. I was just always so, like, I remember I spent like weeks just trying to book Minneapolis, just like one day.
Yeah.
But it was just like, I only went at one venue and I had like some like maybes from people. And I was just like throwing, he's like, have you ever been here before? I'm like, nah. And he's like, well, this is like a 500 person venue. I'm just like, that he's like, I could give you on a Tuesday, but you need a really good headliner. He's like, and that's really stretching it, dude. I'm going to be honest. But he was super, that's why I like Minneapolis, is because the people are nice.
Yeah.
And they actually he actually helped me. I try to send emails in Chicago, just radio silence, or they'll say yes and then say no later and make up a story and just be like, oh, you've never played here before. It's like, I literally just came back from there, motherfucker. Like, you just made that up.
Yeah, I think Minneapolis is a superb scene,
superb,
for being up there. And kind of, I think I hear a lot of musicians kind of just based out of there and making it, despite having to travel, 6 hours to get to Chicago.
Need some four-wheel drive.
Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. It's I think even the Midwest, is a decent little, it really depends where
There's plenty
in
of
the
shit,
US, dude. Where you're located, right? If you're in Colorado, if you're an artist in Denver, it's kind of hard to tour.
Not a bad point.
Where do you go? So I don't know. I think East Coast is probably the
jam-packed. Yeah.
Jam-packed. Like I can go an hour and a half or two and go to different spots, but
West Coast is so spread out.
Yeah, I mean, the farther west you get, I think it's kind of more dependent on kind of the surrounding scenes you're in and kind of going between those versus Midwest, you can kind of go either way, right?
It's a good spot.
The
next to some lakes.
Itself. Yeah, it's not bad.
So in those tours, did you self-book them then?
Yeah, I did. The most recent tour I did, I had a booking agent friend kind of book it, and that was nice to kind of like show up and like, oh, what's the itinerary?
So did he like take a chunk of it, or he's just helping you out?
It was a woman. She helped me out, and she.
Is that what she does for her?
She's an artist, and she kind of started doing that, and we met when I was on tour.
Oh, cool.
And kind of came together, and she asked if I ever needed help with that. And I was like, it'd be nice to not book it for once, just the email wise. And it was fun. It was good. You kind of don't know what to expect a little more. I think I was with Will for that because he kind of joined in halfway, and we were like, I think it was outside of Indianapolis at a venue, and it was almost kind of like out of the Blues Brothers, like, kind of like a country western joint.
Sure.
And,
that's right. That'll fit you guys real well.
Yeah. No, it kind of worked out in that sense. But my friend, who's a booking agent, kind of just books, local acts and cool stuff going on. And she booked a couple different kind of like alternative, and like one was kind of more of like a noise band, and that didn't go so well with the venue in terms of like it was interesting. There was no hard feelings, but it was basically kind of like this. We play this kind of music here.
Yeah.
And
just noise music or just country music.
Well, like I'm talking about the venue. Yeah. Like the venue was like kind of this like in the middle. Felt like you were in the middle of nowhere, but you're in Indianapolis, and they kind of specified in kind of more Western American country music, and we kind of brought these edgier kind of acts, which we definitely have that influence, but we're also bringing other stuff to the table, and I don't know, it didn't go so well in terms of them like expecting kind of a traditional sound, and Will and I were like, this is kind of bullshit, man. Like, they were basically like, you guys can play, but they can't play. Like, and
right.
They were not like, you have to leave, but if I were those bands, I would leave.
Yeah.
And, we thought about it for a while, and I guess it makes sense, you know. You go to a jazz club,
right?
It's jazz music. You go to a dance club, it's electronic dance music. In the moment, it felt a little bit like wrong and harsh, and I don't know. I think it's just as much on them. Like, did you not look into the acts you booked thoroughly? Right. You know, but those are just kind of those weird.
I've seen those. When I was looking, I was like, okay, this is a country club, or like not a country club, a country venue.
Yeah.
And I would be like, oh yeah. And so I just send them videos of like my more country thing, you know, style thing. Just be like, yeah, sure.
Because you play all over the place in terms of styles.
But like, I wouldn't be touring as that, you know what I mean? Like I just play whatever songs the band knows, or like whoever's there with me.
Totally.
And then, and so I saw a bunch of country things. So I was thinking, and that's what made me think, oh shit, like I need to get because I would see that everywhere in the country, like everywhere in America. Like there's Americana venues that are just like only, and same thing with I was going to say extreme music, but hardcore, like hardcore bands. Like, because I was talking to this local band, the BBs, you know, the BBs?
No, out of Milwaukee?
Yeah, they live a few blocks away.
Cool.
At least I haven't seen them in a little bit, but super great, like classic American garage punk, like super Milwaukee, like garage. Yeah. And it was just like garage anthems. Like there's one song is called like Meat, and they just spell out meat, and it's just like M-E-A, or no, M-E-A-T, meat is what I like to eat.
Love it.
Meat, you know, or like just like power anthems, you know, of like the garage spirit. And they were telling me how they went on tour, and like they were the first people that I like talked to, like who DIY'd their tour. Yeah. And one of the guys was just like, yeah, dude, it's literally just emailing nonstop, like for a few months, just like just emailing everyone and everything.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube calendar of dates where like one thing shifts and you're like, okay, I guess I'll move that to here. Is it cool? And then you hit up the other venue, and it definitely becomes a mess. And I don't know, ultimately, you know, I talked about this, you know, gig in Indiana, which ultimately we had a good time, and the bands, you know, they were like cool about it and everything. But, you know, that was me like, hey, friend, do you want to just do it for me? Instead of me just kind of like, same with the venue, right? Did they look at the bands thoroughly? Did I like make sure, you know, I think being an independent artist, you kind of have to always be your last draft check.
100%.
Of anything, you know. It feels really nice to be like, oh, thank you for doing this for me. But like, you just got to look out for yourself, you know, left and right.
And that's what I heard, stuff like that. And I was thinking about having people help, but it was just like, and I was starting to get some people who were interested just to send out emails, just like make my life easier. But then I don't know, I started thinking like, oh, like I went to school for computer engineering. I can write scripts to send emails. You know what I mean? Like
some bots.
Yeah, just like make robots send it out, and it's just like boom, 100 emails.
Yeah, I mean, it is really a numbers.
But and they're not super personal, but like you know, it is what it is with a lot of like
kind of like ad lib fill in.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I felt really good about it. I mean, granted, it was all canceled, fucking Rona. But
yeah, so what kind of tour situation did you have?
I had a full West Coast tour, all booked, all like done, like about 10 dates from here all the way to California, all the way through Denver, all the way back, like 2 weeks.
Which is the long haul.
It's a 2 week like real fucking West Coast tour from Milwaukee.
I think it's pretty much equidistant from Milwaukee to go to New York City than it is to like Denver. So, you know, if you're going to LA or California,
but I already had half of the East Coast already booked too. You know, it wasn't announced, but it was all just like, and I was already starting to look at the UK.
Yeah,
because I was getting like I was having some people, I had fundraised for it and stuff, you know, like to at least like make it to pay for some of the shit.
Once you get the airfare out of the way, it's, you know, in general, I think the UK is a little more like here in terms of how they treat artists, but Europe, is
I want to go
mainland Europe,
Germany and Switzerland, and
they treat their artists very nicely.
I hear that that's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I totally remember like April or you know, May just being like, oh, like where can I go? Like you can't go anywhere.
Can't go anywhere.
You know, it's an everywhere thing. You know,
I was going up to Manitowish Waters with a friend a couple weeks ago, just going muskie fishing, and the whole way up there, I came up to this realization. This was just a month ago. Half the time up there was just me like bitching and crying about the tour still, about how it was canceled, and I was just like, damn, Ian, like let it go.
Yeah, it's
let it go, but I can't because I'm traveling and I'm moving somewhere, and I'm just like, oh, thinking about the future, like, well, what about the next tour?
Yeah.
Like, because I've been making music for a while, and like just started to engage in performance like in 2017 really in Milwaukee, and then so it's only been a few years of like performing. I mean, I performed a little bit when I was a kid and stuff, but like engaging in Cullah and like being like boom, engage and just like make that a priority of every day. But
totally.
So I was so excited for that tour, you know, to be like, I'm on a tour.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because I had done a little skint to Texas last December.
Trust me, like no matter what happens on tour, it feels so great to be on tour, to go to these places.
You connect with people.
There might be like 5 people at your show, but you just have the greatest time. You know, it's...
Yeah. I loved it.
I totally remember, you know, like...
I remember.
Doing some of these tours, coming back and just coming back to civilian life, you know, and just being... You know, if a soldier or something would hear me, they'd be like, what are you talking about, dude? But it is really different, you know?
It is different.
You're in this kind of like constant survival, but it almost like optimizes you, like, you know, socially too. It's like, I'm like, wow, I'm like talking to people. You're so
opened up.
And it really makes you value how much can happen in such a short amount of time. You know, you're like, if you're on a 2-week run or something,
once a day,
you kind of have this boom. Yeah, you know, kind of.
I always never wanted to do one. My ideal, like, I get to a place where I don't have to maximize this amount of time, where it's like, because usually for me, I don't really care, but it might be more trouble than it's worth. But like, so that's the nice thing about a solo tour, is you can take your time, you can do things. You got a certain amount of time that you can do it, but when you have other people now involved, then it's like, well, what are their schedules and what are their available? If you're
putting it together, you know, you're ultimately.
And you got to put up the shit.
And you're, you know, you got your friends to make sure they're sleeping well every night. And
yeah, exactly.
I did kind of the first thing we talked about tours. I'm like, yeah, you know, pretty much been just solo tours, but I think that, you know, in terms of performance and just, you know, playing songs and honing in on the craft, it's been really beneficial.
Definitely.
You know, it's a little bit scary to, you know, be in like Manhattan driving like with your guitar and you're like trying to park and you're like, fuck, like no one can help me, just got to go to this venue, hopefully it works. But it's gratifying for sure. And I mean, it's, you know, it's kind of like take the road trip by yourself too, right? I think you don't even have to play shows. Like anyone can do this. Just hit the road with like a sequence of places you're gonna go. I mean, now it's maybe not the best time, although some people have been traveling. But
if you avoid the cities, you travel to like parks and shit.
Yeah, I mean, West Coast now is definitely.
Fires have stopped.
I hope, yeah. I
think they have. I was gonna go out to Portland that same, like literally a couple days after the fires like got out of control.
Yeah, you had. So have you been able to get out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin much? Or? Yeah,
I've been able to take a few trips to New York this past few months. It was interesting. I got to see them slowly clamp down restrictions on, or like try to get people's like survey people as they're coming through the gate, being like
where are you coming from?
Like, hey, sign this paper, and I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Like, don't. Yeah. Like the airplane already has a record of me. Like, you can ask them. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, it's supposedly pretty safe to travel.
On the airplane itself, it's supposed to be really, really safe. Like because they have insane airflow and filtering there.
Yeah, and I also heard that some flights or airlines are even like offering like rapid testing or something.
Really?
Like before. I think it might have been something
for first
I heard
class
on the radio. Like, yeah, exactly right. First class, you get champagne and a rapid COVID test. Yeah, man. Interesting.
No, the airports that are weird, and like I had a layover.
Are they pretty empty? Like what? Or is it?
When the first time I went, it was empty. Like everywhere, like I had a layover, and everywhere I was empty. But that was like, maybe in June or July or something.
Okay.
I think, I don't remember, but they're pretty much back up. The tickets are going almost back up to like normal ticket prices again.
I lost my chance with that.
It's going. I mean, I still got a round trip to LaGuardia from Chicago for $100. You know,
that's pretty cheap.
But I got a $50 one a couple months ago, so that was like, all right, COVID be damned. No, I get a test before and after I go, like in Milwaukee, to make sure. Because it's free testing, and it's just for the sake of, I don't know, traveling is weird, and like when I had a layover in Orlando, and there are a few
coming back from so you went like New York. Orlando.
Yeah, it was just a terrible. They added it to fucking Spirit. Like,
is it farther? I'm assuming it takes.
Yeah, dude. It's not a straight shot.
Spirit.
They just added. I think it was Spirit. It might have been United. I don't remember.
What's the difference, really?
They added it literally like 2 days before. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, this is no longer nonstop. This is one stop both ways. It's like, and I couldn't do anything.
Was it both times?
One was Orlando. One was Carolina, South Carolina.
Is it? Or yeah,
Charlotte.
Charlotte. Yeah, it was probably United because I think that's like a
it was
big
probably
hub.
United. I was very disappointed. Shame on you, United.
Yeah, it's kind of like the back to the show thing, right? And taking the precautions. I mean, I don't know, like if you have to go travel and see family for whatever reason, you got to do it, and and that's that. And I think from a kind of psychological, mental standpoint, it would be nice to get out of Milwaukee. I mean, I'm definitely so used to kind of playing shows or going somewhere that this year has been particularly like different, but
very different.
It's been good to kind of just sit in solitude a little bit too.
100%.
And reflect, so.
I think that's what's been good about, like, silver lining in all this, of like, for everyone, is I've been hearing a lot of stories of people who have at least have the privilege to like not be bankrupt from this all, and like, or totally their lives, or even hit with COVID, or, but a lot of people who were able to get unemployment, or were able to like just survive with a job, still have a job or something, like everyone's like take a break, and fucking sports stopped, dude, for like months. That's like never happened before. Like, like I was reading, I remember reading articles at the time that like nature was like coming back into the streets, like in like major cities for like a couple weeks, because people were just hunkered down, terrified of like what the virus might be.
Yeah, crazy. And
like satellite radar was like showing industry reclusing, like you could see like the skies are becoming clearer. Like
that's what they say, right? Cities would turn pretty green pretty quickly.
Yeah, quick, and it's crazy. And I mean, I don't know. It shows you, at least with that, was like a little bit of, I don't know. It's a little glimmer of, with every. It's the yin yang, right? Like every darkness has a little thing of light in it, and every light has a little bit of darkness in it. And I feel like that's the same thing could be said with this whole thing. It's made people much more aware.
I mean, if you tie it into like climate change and stuff too, it's
a practice run.
We're in the thick of it, of this pandemic, right? And we find these excuses, or we find reasons to say it's okay, but it's like, something tells me that it is really kind of like the start of kind of the bad times of like from the, like, how much does it take for us to realize this it's happening, like the wildfires and pandemics, like
there's going to be like 20 hurricanes coming at.
Like, we have consequences for our actions as a society, and it's like, it's what kind of like large messages need to be sent for like humanity to get it. I don't know, but that's how I see it. It's kind of like, it's tough, right? Like,
I think those like survival instincts got to kick in or something, and it's just
I think
not.
People have experienced that this year,
A little bit, yeah, for sure.
A little bit, like at least kind of the adrenaline, like, whoa, wait, I can't
Life
go
or
outside.
death, yeah.
Like, and it's like, yeah, I mean, not to undermine people who, had faced these things before, pandemic or anything, like.
It's a little humbling to America, because I think a lot of us, I felt the same thing. Like I was like, oh, it won't reach us. It's like bird flu or SARS or whatever. Like it's just an Asian thing, and it won't make its way over here.
Yeah,
but it did, and so I think that I remember hearing some reporting from. Well, actually, I was talking to a friend who lives in China, and in like I don't remember where in China, but somewhere in China, and she was talking about how like been there, done that type thing with COVID. It was just like everyone knew what to do. Everyone had been here before. They knew exactly what was going on. So everyone
people wear masks.
Everyone was wearing masks, and they social distance, and they did the same protocols they've been doing for the past 5-10 years of this shit. And so when it hit America, it was like, first of all, why would for-profit healthcare institutions be stocking up on vital like medicines, right? Like it's not going to make them any money. But in like two, we'd never experienced this, and it's like even doctors and people were just like, I don't know about this thing, like it's not.
Yeah.
But now things are a little different.
It's kind of caught a lot of people by surprise.
Well, the insurance companies have been making record profits during this whole thing, which is like, I mean, if you want to see, yeah, like, and who I can't help but think like, okay, part of this confusion has to have been done on purpose. Like maybe not like puppet strings, like, yes, we will manipulate them. Yes. But like subconsciously, these institutions know that they need to make more money, and they know what they need to do to make more money. And so, you know what I mean? I don't even think it's like, that's the way, at least I look at it.
Anyone's going to adapt to the given situation. They have to some way.
Yeah. And whatever game you put in
is no different.
Yeah, so I think what's just sad is the fucking music venue shit that's going on. Like, I saw Up and Under, right? It's
Up
down.
And Under, and yeah, definitely those like places.
They're fucked.
If anyone's like, where do I play my first show? Where do I play?
That's the place.
If there's a band who's coming in town, like, oh, you need a spot, play. I think Fire on Water is the other one.
Yeah,
so
it's like, damn, all the underage bars that no one cared about. Like, go figure, they weren't able to survive a COVID crisis. But no, but Up and Under been there for like 25 years or some shit. Like,
yeah, it's true.
That was one of the first places I played. It's like, and I was like 19. I wasn't supposed to.
Any Milwaukee, musician has played there, and I mean, going back to the kind of surviving this year. I mean, I'm definitely grateful for where I've been in Milwaukee. As an artist, if I was in any other city, I think it would have been tougher. Not to say that,
because of the cost of living and stuff.
Not to say that establishing your roots elsewhere can bring other things, but I think this was a pretty good place to be during all this. In terms of minimizing the impact and finding creative ways for revenue. Right. To survive. I mean, I think Milwaukee is a good place to be, for that, which I think you'd probably agree.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with the solitude point. I was able to get out of the house every day during quarantine and walk down the river there, just 2 blocks away from here,
have space,
and go into a place of solitude every single day. And I'd fucking see deer and crane and fucking red-winged blackbirds and fucking like crazy, all the tree swallows and all this stuff. Like, and I just life, there. And
it is a very green and nice city in terms of that aspect. And the trees are there, which sometimes can be lost in other places. Like I said, I mean, feel bad for for artists who kind of made moves this year, you know, to bigger places. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, how do you immerse yourself in a scene that isn't really you know, because everything's dormant, right? Isn't that the best way to you know, it's kind of like things are maybe functioning but slower, you know, whether it be music. There's occasional shows, or, you know, we're doing a social distance show, but it's a lot, you know, there's not a lot of things going on in general. So it's
the people who are willing to take the risk, although we're minimizing it as much, it's always a risk, right? Like, and that's the thing. It's like, that's what I was talking to Ryan about. I was like, at some point we're gonna go inside. Winter is coming. And so like at some point people are gonna have to make the decision whether to try it or not. And I feel like with this Halloween is the time to try it. But you can't. I'm not gonna lie, dude. I don't have any desire to make to book another show.
Oh no, I don't. It's been, you know, I'm happy that, you know, there's enough people who want to go to it. And,
that at least all the musicians will get paid thanks to all the people who come, and like the venue will be happy, the people will be happy, it'll be at least a little gleam of hope.
It will be the last, you know, kind of slice of anything. And you bring up a good point. It's like, when the winter comes in these parts, what the
fuck's really gonna happen, dude?
I can't really go. I could go for a walk down the river, but it's a totally different experience.
Yeah, I'm gonna
get you know.
I'm gonna have to bring some spikes.
So you're right. I think in Wisconsin it's a critical spot where it's like, you're gonna either
go ice fishing.
Ice fishing. Maybe I'll finally ice fish.
I'll if you want to try it. Okay. One of my buddies is all into ice fishing. My roommate's got a couple of things too. Just right on the harbor, McKinley Harbor.
You just go up there.
You just go out there. You literally just put a tent up. You pop in there. You got some.
What other city can
beers,
you do that?
brews, you know, blunts, whatever you want, and then you just sit there and you just wait.
And you just wait.
And you just chill and you eat and drink and just sit in the cold.
I'm definitely one to, I don't know, I've snowboarded in the past, but it's been hard to find
cross-country
kind of winter activity. I think I've probably snowshoed more than you know, cross-country skied, but yeah,
we're used to it, dude. The winter, you just
for
stay.
For me, I do enjoy the changes of seasons. I just wish I could adapt to them quicker. You know, there's always this kind of lag of like.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I think I'm finally like, okay, yeah, it's not
with
like
the cold now.
Cold. Yeah, but it's like I wish I could just shift right away.
Well, there's those first days in winter, at least for me, how it is, where you go outside and it's like 50 degrees, and I'm just like, it's like I can't stop shivering.
I think to myself, like, how am I going to do it? You know, a little part of me every year is like, wait, how do I do this? If this is 50 degrees,
every
like,
year.
It gets like negative.
But January, you go out in your fucking shorts and for down the street, you know.
You go ice fishing in your shorts. A couple brats.
Yeah. Sleepstick here in the chat says the music industry is affected everywhere, and my friends lost their jobs. This is in Singapore, so.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, man, and what the
booking agents, you know, any infrastructure, like, you have to get creative. Like,
do you want any more tea?
Sure. Yeah, I'll have a little more tea. Why not? Yeah, I think that's what to make the music business hard enough already. I think artists have kind of found the like, well, you know, a traditional live stream of, you know, me playing in my bedroom might not, you know, you have to kind of, on top of your artistry, you have to be like, how am I going to stand out now even more, you know? And like, I think
start a podcast.
And hey, you know, I think that's wonderful, because
dude, the podcasts have more, like, I guess they call it CPM. It's like clicks per million or something, or with this company that I use, Anchor. They give me $15 CPM. So like, I have like 10 listeners according to the Anchor profile, but I've made like $8 from 30 episodes. So it's like, that's a much it's a way bigger ROI than making a song and putting it on Spotify. And I don't know how, I don't know, just to, it also is a whole fucking production, but
no, that's a good point.
But you can go on your computer and just fucking, have you heard Bill Burr's Monday? I mean, he's Bill Burr, but like, he just rants. He just rants, and he just fucking goes, and he's also hilarious.
That's why I agreed to this, man. It's like, we're just talking, right? And, the world seems to have found a way to enjoy other people talking about stuff, which is cool.
I enjoy it. I mean, people have insightful things to say. You can learn something from everyone. That's why I like it too. I mean, I started this way before, like last year. So like, started before. It wasn't just a Rona thing, but
yeah. I mean, I definitely see. this year has, probably been a surge in people picking up mics and
100%.
Well,
you have to.
And I think
webcams have been like sold out, for like, that's why I use a phone. Pro tip, just use an old phone.
There you go.
It's over Wi-Fi.
It's great. I mean, I don't know, 2020 has been a year of kind of a slap in the face change, and I do think it's a turning point for the music business. Like, we all knew as artists, like, oh yeah, shows that's where we make the most money, but it's not until they're gone where you're like, how can I make any penny from any sort of any way, and it's like, I don't know, like from streaming to, all these things, like 2020 is really a turning point, if we're talking about music specifically, it is going to be, I think, I don't know, you just think about artists who have been trying to do stuff, and it's like on the tipping point, and they're like, is this not the year to be like, I'm done? Like, I tried. I tried, and like, point. What can I do now? I just got like 50% of, so it's gonna,
all the people who invested all their, I mean, I invested a lot of time in my tour and shit, but when it all, I'm not gonna lie, when it all got canceled, I was like, and maybe it was because of the Rona, but like, I also had a sense of relief.
Yeah.
I was also like, oh, I don't have to drive 10 hours to Montana for the first day.
I will say there's no other motivation for me, dude, to drive that long straight in a car than to go to a show. It's kind of like shocking. It's like what? Why would you do that? It's like, you should try it. If you haven't, it's fun. It's worth it. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely gonna, unfortunately, from venues to artists, like, it's gonna wean some folks out.
It might be like a wildfire, right? Like it picks off, it just burns through the shit, but then all those wildfires, you go back to the same spots, maybe this time next year or whatever, or maybe next spring, you're gonna see a different landscape. You're going to see new life coming, right?
I mean, don't they say that, like, some of the I don't even know the science behind it, why, but like a lot of the wildfires, like, they believe they've been, getting stronger and stronger because they have been suppressed for so long and put out before, because they are a natural thing, to a certain extent.
Yes, so all it takes is a lightning strike.
You put out the ones that are supposed to happen, and then inevitably this kind of thing brews up. And
that's a good point.
It's a good comparison for a lot of things.
When people said that one of those fires was from a gender reveal party, I was like, bullshit, dude. Like,
I did hear about that.
I was like, really? Like, not that I don't think that could be the case, because of course it could. I mean, who knows? But to me, it just seemed like so ridiculously like fucking fake news, mainstream media shit, where it's just like, oh yeah, here's a new headline of this, and
I know I have a buddy who lives like by Redding,
maybe it is
Redding,
I think
California.
Redding,
so like definitely up there, and he was saying like, like there were like, he never got evacuated, but he was within 2-3 miles of like a fire, and it was real. And I did bring up,
the fires are very real.
I was ashamed to kind of bring up, like, did you hear about the gender reveal part? But he's like, yeah, I did hear that's how it started, and, but
California.
There's multiple of these fires, that, it's
crazy. And it's been happening every year, like you said. And I think part of it is it's getting hotter, right? And the Arctic is melting, right? But what's interesting about the fire, dude, I was just watching this whole podcast on the history of the philosophers of fire, of like,
Cool.
like what were the first people, like think back to like straight up first humans, right? Like whether or not they were impregnated by other creatures, that they're humans, or they're just evolved over millions of years, or whatever you want to say. Or there was obviously a jump that we still don't totally know what happened, but some people say it's mushrooms, some people say it's like other creatures from different planets.
Have we ever talked about the Stoned Ape theory? Did we talk about that ever? Stoned Ape theory.
The Stoned Ape theory? I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we ever talked about it.
But my
sense to
conception of it, is that our primate ancestors were up in the canopies and they ran out of food at one point, and
so let's try
a
those
couple
mushrooms.
of them were like, let's go down and forage for food down on the bottom, and they found what happened to be some mushrooms with poisoning, mind altering qualities, and they say that kind of spurred the first, like, it's when those two monkeys were like, oh, hey, maybe we are more similar than different. Like, let's try to communicate. And, some sort of catalyst. To
Definitely.
What was that jump?
Because there's a clear difference in the prefrontal cortex of an adult human versus an adult chimpanzee.
It's true.
We're definitely different creatures, but like...
I always thought that was an interesting theory. I have no idea...
no, it's super interesting theory,
but it's like,
and there's some evidence. There's some like evidence of, because I grew up in a Catholic like household. My parents were raised very devout Catholic, but they weren't devout Catholics, but their parents were. It's like all my grandparents were.
It kind of gets watered down as it goes down.
Yeah, I think it's just like slowly the evidence of like the Vatican became clear.
Right, with religion, I feel like it does get.
Well, the Vatican is just like, I just think in the last 50 years, especially with the internet and shit, and like, it's been pretty clear, and that, like what's going on. And I think it's just it's amazing that it's so drastically changed, because I mean my family are all like Irish Catholics, and they would say like, oh, we're not Roman Catholics, we're Irish Catholics. It's basically mean like you're Catholic, but you don't really believe in a lot of this stuff, but you still are Catholic. And you worship Mary usually over Jesus, and you don't really believe in the Pope, but you do. But like it's kind of just like it's just an excuse. That's what people would say, and it's just like, well, you're still reading the Catechism, you're still reading like you're still following, you're still reading their Bible, you're still doing their rituals, you still believe in their sacrament, like whatever. Yeah. But I think just over time the information got out. It was just like yo, like this is all manufactured for an empire. Information
in general, right? Like, I mean, if the internet age wasn't kind of the cementing like block on like, hey, this is fact versus this is not, at the palm of your hand.
Who's to say even with that shit too? That's what's crazy. But like, so the philosophers of fire is like this idea of these early people. So this is another theory, essentially very similar to the Stoned Ape theory. Okay. It's like, where was there an event or some type of thing that we can point to and say there is some consciousness shift, like that there is an awakening or whatever you want to call it. And apparently in like there's this, I can't remember specifically the anthropologist who was positing this theory, but he was saying that this symbolism and this idea is exactly what Prometheus is to Greece, where they brought fire to the humans, which is the like illumination of knowledge. And in the Judeo-Christian faiths, it's Lucifer. Lucifer actually in Latin means the light bearer. It's someone who brings light and who brings the illumination.
Kind of going back to these archetypal, repeating cycles.
Like essentially it's like, okay, well, what's fire? Why fire? What's going on with that? And this anthropologist was talking about, imagine the early humans. You've mastered fire, at least you have some fire, and you look into the fire, and you're just like, and you can see it's alive. You can feel it's alive. You don't know what the fuck it is. It's staring back at you. You don't know really.
Like I made this, and now it's own entity.
Right. It's moving. It's alive. It's like and so then the main shift is from the element of fire to the concept of spiritual flame, or consciousness from light.
Gotcha.
Creating the spiritual flame of our own consciousness. And so this guy was talking about very much like the Amanita muscariat or whatever, that red mushroom, which there's a lot of early Christian paintings of like Adam and Eve eating mushrooms.
The forbidden mushroom.
The fruit of good and evil, which is the understanding of the polarity, right?
Maybe it was the forbidden fungus.
Well, I mean, there's some forbidden fungus in a lot of places.
Yeah. Practically everywhere.
But the idea is essentially like the first philosophers of fire, the first like illuminated concept of like fire as a consciousness, a form of consciousness, or at least of a symbol or like an understanding of it, was when the lightning strike hit. And so they'd see light, fire. That's like, you don't know what the fuck's going on. So like the idea of Lucifer being rejected from heaven,
so he's
bringing the light, falling down. Same with Prometheus. He was like fucking imprisoned and like rejected and brought the fire to humans. And so it's this like whole idea of like this God bringing the consciousness, enhancing our consciousness, illuminating it through the flame,
materializing that power, like bringing it to what in those ages, like why am I to believe that?
Dude, you see a fucking lightning strike and it burns a fucking tree that's been there for 300 years, and you're just like, that probably means something. Yeah, that's a sign. That's a sign for sure. That's probably so. Like think about that, and then the philosophers of fire were the people who, when they would seek out then lightning strikes, this fucking crazy storm, go in the woods. Everyone canvass the woods, wait for fire, wait for the lightning to come and get some illumination. So they would wait for that lightning to strike, and then they'd get the fire, and then they would keep the fire. And they would keep it as long as they could for days and days and days and days and days and days. And so then that would be the divinely inspired consciousness, like from God. Like that was that. Well, and then they would look into the fire and see, like, but that fire in particular, right, from the lightning strike. I thought that was a really interesting, origin myth or something.
I mean, we've all experienced it too, right? They do say it's something about looking into a fire. Whether you even need it for warmth, there's something kind of like
stare into it.
It's like the best. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good way to lose your thoughts for a little bit.
Yeah, there's got to be, and that's probably millions of years of like fire. Yeah, like of like
positive reinforcement. Yeah, and just like this is good for you. For the most part, just don't put your. I mean, most people don't put their hand in it. But
sometimes that's how
some
you
people,
learn.
Have the weird like party tricks where like, whoa, yeah, put my hand in fire, like.
Yeah, it doesn't burn when you're in there for a second. On the flame.
Yeah, you touch the rock on the bottom.
There's some people, people can walk on it too and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was a really interesting thing, because I've been reading a lot, because I grew up in that Catholic faith, but I've been my whole like studies of it now are just like me trying to understand why the fuck I had to go to church 2 times a week for my entire childhood. It's just like, why are you here? Like, you don't even believe in it. They'd be like, it's just what we do. Like, I don't know.
It's just part of.
And like how my grandparents were so devout, but my grandparents on my dad's side were more just like, yes, and just go to church, put your head down, study it, like whatever they say. My grandpa on my mom's side was like taught by Jesuits who have a little different philosophy. Who apparently, I think they're the ones who really run most of that shit, but they're at least like, they at least will say the shit like, oh no, it's always question it, which is at least a good motto. I mean, like, they say that, whether or not they actually believe it or not, it's a different story. But like, because I'd say the Jesuits I've met are more open-minded, but there's also sketchiness of like the Vatican and like all this shit. It's just like, dude, I don't know. I've been looking at the history of the Vatican and like how these like the books were chosen, the history of like the Spanish Inquisition, and like Dante, you know, doing that.
Going back
yeah,
to
dude,
all that.
Dante was like wrote that whole thing about all those layers of hell, and that the Pope, I forget what the name of the Pope it was at the time, was at the very bottom. He's like, this is the worst human in existence. He's the lowest of the lowest, and that's not, and I think even artists and people have been saying this about popes since the beginning of time. And like reading about the like the families, I think they're called like the black families or something, or the black. They weren't black; they were Italian, but like they're the color, or the black nobility or something, or how they're just rich families that like basically were in the Vatican, and then they just became popes, and they weren't even like part of it. You know, it's just like, corruption, right? Like,
I think with religion, it's the power of the culture is just as much as the spiritual, right? There, you know, when you talk about it being passed down, it seems to be the thing, right? It's like the spiritualness gets lessened, but the attachment to it is like, this is our culture. This is kind of like our rituals of way of life kind of stays, but it seems like the belief and the ideas have diminished generationally. But
because it's not really holding up to like relevancy of today, because it's like
we're literally witnessing, you know, and that's back to the like how many wildfires and hurricanes is it going to take
have that paradigm
to be
shift?
Like it's happening, you know, like these things we're in the middle of it. Like life in 2020 is not as smooth as this should be, like the best year of life yet. Yeah. But it's not.
No.
You know, so
ups and downs, I guess. I mean, it's interesting because like the more I've been going back to like pre-Roman Christian scriptures and stuff, which are, I mean, they read totally different. The Gnostic scriptures, they have completely different origin myths and just everything is totally different. Yeah. Everything about it is totally different. Like Mary Magdalene was the number 2. Like,
and I think that's kind of like, right, the big argument for religions in general is kind of like, it's been around for so long, but it's like, it's changed a lot, you know, it has, but, you know, going to Roman times, like, it's not like it was.
Oh, there's so much difference.
So I think it's obviously important to, you know, appreciate these things as they are, and there is that, you know, kind of legacy of it, and it has made it this far, but there's a lot of telephoning, right? A lot of editing and a lot of like
it's made it this far by like conquering and like by like
there's
malice.
There's always ulterior motives.
And I mean, all the priests are all pedophiles, and you know what I mean? Not all of them, but all the way at the Vatican. Give me a break. Like that's as corrupt and as absolute like power as you get. A pontifex, like but what's interesting is just like how all this. Well, now we're getting all this knowledge, like anthropologists, geneticists, like all these people, like archaeologists, they have space archaeology and shit. Like they're discovering all this stuff now, and it's coming out in the open, and we can read it. Like, oh, what did Christians think before the Romans?
It used to be hard to access information.
Yeah, and that's what's like they're saying about this philosopher's fire is that they would keep the fire to themselves, and then they would like hold it as a secret. It was like one of the first secret societies was like only we can look into the flames. Because we don't, you know, like, and then.
So would they kind of like from the original fire? Would they just kind of keep a torch burning?
Yeah, exactly. They would just keep it burning, and it was still the magic.
Still the same.
Yeah, it's still the same. But it like if you think about it, it's like I don't know. I've been hearing things about water too.
The eternal flame, right?
Yeah, the eternal flame. Yeah. But the water is an interesting thing too. That, you know, as being one of the 4 elements, but also scientists are discovering that it has quote unquote memory.
Water.
Yeah, water, dude. Like water.
Like spatial memory.
Or like yeah, in the molecules, like how they interact and how they work with each other, and like it tells you. It's not like on April 30th on 1962 I was in
a toilet.
Yeah,
but now I'm in a sink.
I once was in Hitler's seltzer water. It's like, but
Yeah.
no, but that's like scientific fact. That's not even like anthropological, like or just like ancient myth. Like that's real science, like hard just chemistry, and like that
we're going down to the molecules.
Has some type of memory. Like it's the best analogy of the word. It's like because you can look back in the time and like see the how the water had changed over time. And so, like, I don't know, it's just like shit like that where it's like,
it's fascinating.
It's a lot deeper. Things are a lot deeper than people. And I think that's one of the things of 2020, and part of the like the solitude and the reflection on 2020 is like there are things that are much deeper and bigger than we'd like. Everyone goes around thinking like they know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, this is the kind of like you can't ignore it. Like there's a big elephant in the room. And it's like. A lot of years past, it's, you can kind of push things aside for your own motives or whatever, and those people are finding, like, it's just not about me this year, you can't do certain things,
Yeah, and all it corresponding with all the George Floyd and all the other people, the massive protest, which I thought was, I attended a bunch of protests in Milwaukee when it was going. It was like some of them were very intense, like real like focused energy. It felt like, and some of them felt more like parades. Some of them felt more like, which was interesting just seeing a few of them because everything was closed down. It was literally like festival season in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
and so people are like, "What do we do?" Well, the only place we can go is in the protests, so like let's go into the protest and have fucking essentially just have a parade but do it for something, do it like to at least exercise the amendment. I mean, and everyone was watching, and like we saw like there was something crazy that just happened in Philly, which isn't surprising. Did you know that the Philadelphia Police Department literally dropped a bomb in the neighborhood in Philly in 1985.
I have heard about this before.
That's fucking crazy.
It was.
And people are like, "Oh yeah, no, the police, they're fine." It's like, dude, like they had a Black Hawk helicopter, fucking in Milwaukee.
I don't know if you remember. Yeah, I mean, they were like a couple of those tank kind of police mobile vehicles were definitely like patrol. We lived like 3 blocks away, and they were definitely like going around.
It's just totally
like,
uncalled for.
There weren't any people.
Because I was at protest or watched live streams all that first week, and there was one night where there was the first night after I think George Floyd. It was like this night after, like a Wendy's or Walgreens got like looted
in Milwaukee.
Okay. And it was at Walgreens on MLK or whatever, literally a block away from the police precinct, and I remember watching the Common Council interviewing, the chief at the time. Did he step down?
I'm not sure.
He at the time just like had a press conference at the same time that the Common Council had this like meeting. So the lieutenant came instead of him, and was like, yeah, well, I don't have all the information. And I remember they like the River West councilman, I forget what his name is, but he was nailing them. He like went to Harvard and shit and was like a Navy SEAL or some shit. And he was just like asking all the right questions. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy right now watching this. Yeah. And to see them, and he was asking, he's like, so what's up with this riot? What was going on? Or this looting? What was happening? It was down the street from you guys. Like, what was going on? Where were you? Yeah, where were you guys? Right. And he said that they were being, that there was a siege. Literally, that's the word he used. A siege on that precinct by rioters. A siege. Like a siege in military is when you're locked in an area and they're like.
Yeah, I'm thinking like move. When you say siege, I'm thinking like moats.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Siege them.
Exactly. Siege weapons in Age of Empires, but then they released all this footage of like the worst things to justify all their violence, and there was no siege on there at all. There was no evidence of that, and they had no proof. They didn't release any information about being sieged. Yet this thing was being looted down the street from them. And then they used that to justify having a fucking Black Hawk helicopter for like a week.
A long time.
Yeah, it was like over a week, maybe 2 weeks. Just like
helicopter,
just fucking people's sleep up, just terrorizing it. That's what it felt like to me. I was like, is this like Afghanistan? Because that's it's fucking like that's literally a military helicopter. And I thought it was a National Guard. But then that same council person asked, "So is that your helicopter?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, that's our helicopter." It's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, hey, don't get me wrong. Like, I think a police department should have cool weapons. Don't get me wrong. Like, sure. Like, but
yeah, I think like,
but there's a big but. Like,
yeah, I mean,
should you be chemically gassing protesters that are literally sitting down saying we are nonviolent? I saw that live stream of people literally sitting down and them literally just pummeling them and shooting shit at them, literally sitting down, holding hands, saying we are not violent.
Yeah, just doing what you're allowed to do.
It's crazy, man. And so like,
I just think that it feels like police departments, they monitor themselves, like, yes,
right. Yeah. There's no accountability.
There is some sort of, interdepartment investigation that may come in from an outside party, but I think that's really, if it's tough to get police,
right,
to change how they're doing it.
If they're not going to go to jail, then nothing's going to change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they're not accountable. And that's to me, like, I hear the defund the police thing, and I agree with it in sentiment because I also agree with like defunding the Pentagon, all that shit.
Defund a lot of things.
Dude, I went during quarantine. I went and wrote a little script to look back at all the PDFs of all the budgets that they had online from like 2003 or something. Or no, it was in the 1990s, like 1996 or something. And I plotted all of all the budgets versus the police versus all the major other like health and all that stuff. The police department since the 90s had doubled from like 25% of the city's budget, meaning your taxpayer dollars here in Milwaukee, to 50%. Literally 50% of every dollar that we give to the police goes to the police department. And so it's like, hey, what about this whole do more with less type austerity type thing, right? Like, if they're really elite, smart people, they should be able to handle that shit, no problem, right?
Yeah,
and that's the problem.
It's crazy too. I definitely feel like I still see like old squad cars in Milwaukee too. Like, like you're still driving that, like, and it's like, what? I guess you can afford the tear gas and the chopper, but you can't get new cars.
Yeah, I think they'll take what they can get. Yeah. I mean. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of police officers I've met and that have been very nice and they help me and like I'm amazing. But for a lot of things, it doesn't seem like them pulling people over for speeding just seems like it shouldn't happen. Like if you're speeding, why do you need a gun? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like
that should be a
separate thing.
I mean, we do have parking enforcement.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
There are different kind of. There's like I don't even know how the auxiliary police force works, but they exist, And
yeah, no, I think I mean I like that type, at least like thinking about that and like having that discussion.
It's definitely more of kind of
there's a lot of waste.
European mentality, and I think there's definitely more accountability there. I mean, there might be more CCTV and like monitoring and stuff like that. In
England and Ireland, they don't even have guns like on the island, really, like. Other than hunters, like rifles and shotguns and shit. And then it's like carefully monitored. And here it's different. So like, and that's why it's like even more important that the police need to be trained even more because like every fucking citizen in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin, if you don't have a criminal record, you can get a concealed carry permit.
It's true.
And you can walk around with a gun on your person. And that was one thing that I attended one protest, and I saw there was like there was this one leader. His name was Frank Nitti,
okay,
and he walked to Washington and back and stuff.
Definitely heard about all that.
He was walking every day. I walk around the river and I'm like, my knees are it's like, damn, this motherfucker is like really putting in the work. and I went and he had one. I went to one of the protests that he was like live streaming, and I saw at the front and the back of the thing, dudes with fucking Rasta shit and AR-15s.
Damn.
Just like passing a blunt. I was like, oh my god, like that. But and I heard something online that was like, the police don't tear gas the Second Amendment protesters, and I was just like, wow, yeah, that's a fucking scary but really good point. Like, was the police going to engage with that? You know what? And so then I started thinking, so it's like, well, you might be able to use that to your advantage, right?
If we have similar to kind of like wasn't it like the wall of moms, right? That they would have
with babies, just bringing babies and moms.
So I don't know. It's you know, when one side's cheating, what are you gonna do? I mean, I think violating, you know, kind of something that's considered a war crime, you know, and tear gassing people,
especially the people you're supposed to be protecting, and that's the thing. Like there were some local musicians. I think it was the woman, and I don't know if the band still exists, but Nickel Rose. Her and this other amazing singer. What was her name? But I was watching some of their shit during those protests, and they were like live streaming stuff, and they were like bringing supplies to a protest, and these cops just like jumped them and like fucking threw shit at them and put them in a holding cell with a bunch of other women, like all handcuffed for overnight with like no bathroom breaks. It was in the middle of a pandemic, no masks, no anything. Like, didn't even read them their rights. Didn't, like, people were calling all the precincts being like, where is what's her face? And they're like, oh, over that. And then they kept redirecting back. And it's just like, wait, so we can just snatch up people now?
Yeah, the whole unmarked vans.
The unmarked, yeah, dude.
And I mean,
I think it's been going on for a while.
And I don't know. I think America has a good ability to have problems with the rest of the world, but kind of mask them a little bit, right? Like, what is, you know, you put it in just because he's in a Chrysler minivan, right? Mm-hmm. And it, you know, kind of might look like a mom drive. Like, it's no different than a Russian, kind of situation with someone
or the Gestapo or something.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. You know, it's like,
I mean, the CIA, the NSA, we know. I mean, shit, dude. I mean, it goes. I'm a huge fan of Glenn Greenwald, and like I think Edward Snowden is an American hero. You know, like, and he's been exonerated already in the courts. So it's just like crazy that he's still.
Where does he like?
He lives
reside?
in Russia.
Okay, yeah.
And so he was in transit from like Ukraine to Cuba to Ecuador, or I think that's where he got asylum.
Just kind of like.
And so he was, because he had to move from place to place because they were like gonna snatch him up wherever he could. And
they're just finding ways. Yeah, wherever.
And so they kept him in Russia. They stopped his passport. They stopped him from leaving. They were in there. Apparently Joe Biden was one of the people that him and John Kerry were like calling places to like tell them, you can't give this person asylum. You can't give this person asylum. But there was, dude, I remember when all that shit went down, was a Bolivian president was in Russia for some like economic summit or some like world leaders gathering thing. He was flying back from Russia that like same day that Snowden was like supposedly in Russia, and he was on this plane or something, but then they didn't see him there, and they totally did like a, Snowden. They were still looking for him. The United States government, I don't know which department or whatever it was, but they scrambled jets, went next to the Bolivian president flying back home. They scrambled jets, forced them to land, so they were going to shoot them down. They didn't land.
Where, over where?
They were over the Atlantic, so they turn back around or something and go back. Literally strong arming a president of like, because they might have a political prisoner. And it's just like, oh yeah, no, that's just normal.
Yeah, what year was that? Was that
like, right at the year the Snowden shit? So that was like, I don't know, 2000. It was like 5 years ago or something, or like
2015 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But that dude, like, that's just out in the open. And,
yeah, man.
And like that's just out in the open. Like you can. I was reading it in some new at the time. I was just like, whoa. But yeah, I don't know, man. The stuff goes. So who knows? Maybe those fire philosophers have been keeping that fire from. Dude, you want to hear something really? This is out there. This is more out there, and I don't know. I just heard this online. I don't actually know if this is just like an interesting conspiracy theory or like historical thing. It's definitely very much
an idea.
More like put your aluminum hat on for
farther out than the Stoned Ape theory.
Well, maybe, I don't know. That one, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
about
I mean that one's.
This one is that the Atlanteans, which are like the Atlantis, right?
Yeah.
Where they lived, before Plato's time and stuff, and that they worshipped serpents, or like that the woman or the matriarchal society, and even in Greek and lots of different traditions, the snake is always associated with the divine feminine, or like the Kundalini, or like the like sacred shit. I don't know. There's a lot of you can put some puzzle pieces Medusa. Wherever you want. The Medusa. So this whole theory is that there were two different species of human type creatures, and it's kind of like goes into the ancient Sumerian myth where there was creatures from a different planet that only comes every 20,000 years and seeded Earth with the monkeys, and then like there was two bloodlines. There was like the bloodlines of the people who first, like them and the monkeys, and that.
The closest
that
kind
thing, and then the original people, and then breeding with those half breeds or whatever you want to call them. So there's like multiple
lineages,
and I mean we know that there's like tons of different types of early hominids, like, and that we're all
Neanderthals.
Me and you probably got some Neanderthal.
That's the comparison I was gonna say. Yeah, like kind of that idea.
So it's interesting, but they were saying that eagles were like. They were like the second people, and then the serpents were like the Atlanteans in the original, or like the older group, and that it's been this constant battle between like eagles and serpents. Eagle and serpent bloodlines or something. Even
Which is a pretty epic battle.
Not like David Icke lizard people, right? But that's where people were saying like, well, that's where he got it, was he's just totally misinterpreting these symbols. And even Mexico, like the original flag is an eagle fighting a snake. Like St. George is like the St. George is an eagle, and he's fighting the dragon, right? Yeah. Welsh flag is a dragon, which is a serpent. And then like, I don't know, there's all these different things. I was just like, this is crazy. Like it goes back to yeah, I thought that was a very interesting thing. There's zero evidence I have to tell anyone that this is real, but like it's a cool like when you're talking about ancient myths and you talk about. It would be
cool if they found Atlantis. That would be
well, with the Arctic melting, there's some theories that it's actually Antarctica, because we're seeing, and geologists can prove this shit now. Is that like, dude, humans have survived multiple ice ages. Like we've survived 6 to 7 cataclysmic events, like where the Earth has just moved and shaped. So like we've been around.
We think we got it bad right now.
Yeah, we think we got it bad now.
It's an ice age.
Yeah, dude. And
I don't know what we think it's bad in Wisconsin.
Well,
where do you go?
Just 10,000 years ago, there was miles of ice right where we're sitting, literally miles, just going up and up and up and up. Mm. Like what the fuck? And humans were around. We were around, and we were just chilling somewhere else. We were just like, yeah, we're not gonna live there. And there's a Atlantic shelf of like that apparently that might have civilization on it, like from 50,000 years ago or something. The whole like the seas have rise and fall, and there's been more and less, so it's like it's been going on for a while. And so a lot of people say like, oh, well, that's climate then, so climate change is fine. It's like, well, No, the main difference is like a lot of that stuff seemingly is natural or external cataclysmic events. This climate change we're causing ourselves. Yeah. And that's like it. But that's some of what Plato and some other Egyptian people were saying, that was part of the downfall of Atlantis was their hubris of their technology. Like that's in Plato. Like that's fucking like.
He uses hubris and technology, like
both those words he talks about them. I'm not quoting it verbatim, but
it's almost startling when
he wrote
read
about
stuff like that. It's like goes back to the like. Are we not seeing it? Are we not seeing? Who
were the ancients to the ancients, right? Like, and that's the theory is and the most compelling shit is the genetic stuff that's coming out now, because we're seeing like no. They didn't cross the Bering Strait. They have to have come over the Atlantic Ocean, because these seemingly totally opposite people have the same genetic markings. And so it's just like, wait, what? And so then you look at the heat maps of like where they are, and you're like, oh, yeah. They didn't travel westward through the Bering Strait.
That's like the.
And you look at the technologies,
school, right?
like the technologies and all the stuff that they're doing, all the pyramids and all the architecture and all that shit. It's like there's a lot of similarities and other myths and stuff too. So it's like there is that theory. It's like, oh well, all humans have these myths inherent in our collective unconscious. So I can hear that. That. But then there's also well, what if they both wrote about ancient peoples? They all were writing about these people that they got there, and a lot of them consider them gods. So like, and that's the thing. It's like they would consider or like in Irish mythology, they have like gods and they have giants. Most of the giants are like the people who formed the country, and they were giants. And like, I don't know, there's a bunch of giant motherfucker bones that we've been finding, and tiny humans and like huge humans.
Just different sizes.
It's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah. What do we make of it all?
I don't know. That shit blows my mind, because this one thing that I read recently was that a Welsh prince came to America in the 1100s and settled, and that there's like newspaper, like you can go back into the record of like American newspapers, and you can see people writing about finding Welsh soldiers with Welsh coats of arms buried like in Indian places. There's this one town in Canada that's named after that Welsh guy, and there's a plaque in the town to this day. There's a plaque there that says this prince came over here in 1147 and founded this, this, and it's just like, that's way before Columbus, bro.
Yeah, the whole Christopher Columbus narrative.
Christopher Columbus, apparently, because he was working with the Spanish kings and stuff at the time. And
I mean, is it far-fetched to be like, yeah, earlier humans made a boat and like.
Yeah, it's not far-fetched.
1200s.
Who knows what it even looked like? There might have been a fucking spot in the Atlantic shelf where they could take a break and fucking chill.
Little island.
Yeah, little island.
Island getaway. The first Sandals
on the halfway
franchise.
There, right? No, I don't know. That's what half my mind's been focused on during quarantine.
It's all these cool stuff, man. It's where did we begin?
It just makes me think about like
you have to look at in the past to kind of reflect on these events, and I think the big one, right, for inevitably bringing it back to where we're all at, but 1917, the whole Spanish flu, and it really is becoming more and more that we're talking millions of people. I forgot the numbers of,
and the second wave was way worse than the first.
I think if you just go back to those years and you see what social life was and what they did, you're just going to find it's real similar to what we need to do, or what we're going to be living the next,
even further back.
More. Yeah.
I was reading about the history of social distancing, and
there's a book on it.
Yeah. Like you ever seen those ridiculously huge dresses that women would wear?
Yeah.
Like literally 6 feet.
Yeah, we're talking kind of like Renaissance.
Yeah.
And kind of like a frame, almost like
it's like, why and I was always like, oh, because they're accentuating the fact that they got a fat ass or something. I don't know. Like that's what I can only imagine, some weird fertility thing, or like, or weird cultural.
flapping
or
its
like
wings.
Like here's my hips are so big, like
I can bear children.
Yeah, just imagine how many kids can come out of this giant hoop, but 6 feet in diameter. But but apparently a lot of that stuff was made for social distancing, to be like, no, you literally can't come closer to me.
And are we talking about like plague times, kind of like,
yeah,
just the idea, like, because, I forget the awareness of, back in the bubonic plague, like, dude, were germs and
germ theory. I think people like it's more superstition than like scientific theory, but there were people that knew about it, like,
but it's obvious, like the whole, here 2020, they said the best thing you can do is just cover your face. It probably took someone in the 1300s to be like, oh, not getting sick again, like I am every day going through this,
well, that's the plague doctor.
Street.
The plague doctor would wear that mask. He was literally the doctor who would have to deal with these dead bodies.
He just chose to make it particularly creepy. But
I wonder why they chose it like that. I think they stuffed it.
I mean, I get the distance,
They stuffed it full of like herbs and things, and like things that would stop the
parsley, sage, rosemary.
Yeah, it would stop the whatever plague coming through, because they had
like
all
a
these
little
magic
herb filtration system.
Yeah, that's a very strange thing. But I totally, dude, you're totally right about the Spanish flu. Like, that's the last time America dealt with a pandemic, like, or an epidemic at that proportion. Like, and I heard a story that after the first wave, and they thought it was all done, they were parades, and like, but not
That's
just parades, not parades like this, but like full on giant, like, I heard this story that people literally gathered, took their masks, and threw it all in the sky.
They're like, oh, well,
it's over.
Yeah.
And then a month or two later,
I'm imagining like the famous kind of World War II scene where like the Marine, kisses, it's like, oh man, that's probably what happened.
I heard that woman wasn't his wife or anything. It's just a random woman.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like it's the most iconic picture.
Like,
it shows. I mean, died. That's what I hope it feels like after this. That's Jesus. What people, and going back to the music industry, it's like, that's what I hope too. It's like, I think people are, realizing the lack of live music, but, hopefully the scene from a support standpoint comes stronger, and, apparently like, venues closing and wildfires burning, and things aren't going to make people, wake up, hopefully, but I don't know. It's tough to say what it's going to be like when we come back to,
normalcy.
The Milwaukee, it's going to be so far removed from the last proper show we had, that it's kind of like starting over, like all, it will be reorganizing. And
well, it's a new birth, right? It's a rebirth in a lot of ways. And someone said that to me, or maybe not to me, but someone said it and I heard it, probably online. It was, someone was talking about the analogy of birth, and Mother Earth being the mother, and like how birth is painful, and like spasms and like crazy shit goes down, and it's just screaming pain for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, you were touching on duality, right, and stuff before that, you kind of have to go through these,
it has
valleys,
to.
And you're right, like life is, my experience is really just a bunch of peaks and valleys. It'd be nice to have this kind of like steady, like, oh, it's just a nice medium gradient right now. It's like it's not a valley or a peak, but it really does seem to be kind of these great moments, and maybe some more unfortunate ones, and I don't know. It's my constant, dream to really truly appreciate the moment, as much as you say and try to. It's so hard to do, and even during a pandemic, there's a lot of light and, good things that have come out of this year, and I don't know, it's easier sometimes to see the negative, right? It seems that way generally, at least for me. the negative always pops out.
Yeah.
More
Well,
than
people
the
are
positive.
afraid of it more, I think. And I think that's, and I mean, for rightly so, right? I mean, that's what invokes those emotions. And that's what part of this pandemic, and you mentioned Carl Jung right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like Carl Jung, he's the first, like was a lot of the, well, first I like read some Stoic philosophy before, but right when quarantine was going, I was like, I was full in Carl Jung, just like reading his books, reading all the, like James Hillman is this other great American psychologist who studied in Switzerland, right? That's where he's from. And his whole process of the individuation process, which is essentially becoming aware of all the parts of what makes up the self of the psyche, and understanding the shadow, in particular I guess people call it shadow work. It's like because last year I had a vision that I saw my shadow, or I was well, it was like a dream that turned it, that like I like remembered a day. I was like in a creative space, like just like meditating, and then the vision like expanded, and like I remembered more of the dream, but like other things
Kinda
were
like
probably
a very
added.
Vivid.
Yeah, super vivid. So I was walking into a cave. It was just like coming from a forest, walking into a cave that was, in the cave became pitch black, and I didn't know where I was going. But I didn't know where I couldn't see anything. So but I knew where I was going. I was just walking, and I like knew how to move through this cave, and I just kept going.
Kind of like when you go to your, place in the dark, when
right.
You're like, oh,
it's
yeah.
Like, I know this place. Like, I've been here a million times.
Stub my toe.
It's like, oh shit, every time. Every time I have these visions, but I kept going deeper and deeper into the cave, and then I walked into this one room, and I could feel like the acoustic space change, and I knew this was like some sort of like end, or like a stop, or like I knew this was something. I don't know. I had this sense of like, this is where I needed to be. And then, dreams they don't speak the same language as our logic,
Yeah.
but like then I remember like becoming aware of like something in there too, in that same room. And I like looked over, and I saw out of the corner of my eye some movement, and I saw my shadow in the darkness, like a silhouette of a shadow still in the pitch black.
Yeah.
It was like a different color black or something, like maybe like slightly.
Yeah, that's powerful,
like charcoal.
To see it in the darkness.
I saw it in the darkness, and then as soon as I saw it, as soon as I became aware of it, like in the heart space of the wherever the heart would be in the shadow, there was a little fire. There was like a little spark, and then the whole thing lit on fire and illuminated the whole room, the whole cave. Like, and I looked around, and I saw all on the walls paintings, like ancient, like the earliest stories of
French cave paintings.
Yeah, exactly. The fucking French cave painting looking shit. And then that was pretty much the end. But like,
dude, Carl Jung would say that's just your early human relative, just
exactly
spewing his conscious through the web of humanity.
Dude, that's what I realized. And that's what I made me double down.
I don't know what the shadow quite means, but I feel
so in Carl Jung, the shadow, in his understanding of the psyche, or of the self is part of the self, is just the midpoint of the psyche is a circle, and the self is like it's infinite dot in the middle that you never will achieve.
Bullseye of the bullseye.
It's like the ideal, like, but this, and so there's a self, and then the top third of it is your conscious self, and that's where your ego is, and the ego is like a rectangle, and the bottom 2/3 is your subconscious, and within there is your shadow, and your shadow is the way, and the shadow and the ego are like ways for your consciousness and your subconsciousness to communicate, like, because the shadow projects, or like you project your shadow onto the world, like everything you see is like the shadow. So like when you see, he's all those great quotes of like, when you see someone who really irritates you, what you're really seeing is you're seeing yourself. You're projecting the parts of your shadow. You're projecting your shadow onto them, the parts of yourself that you hate, or you push down, or you don't want to acknowledge. that you can do that too, that you're also an irritating son of a bitch, or you're also a murderous monster, or you're whatever, like, or at least you have the capacity to. We're seeing it in each other, right? We see it in ourselves. And so the whole idea of shadow work is understanding that darkness is it's not just part of it, it's required for consciousness, is required for light. Like, darkness and light aren't just separate. They're separate, but they're functions of each other. The yin yang is the best symbol, because it's a wheel. It's supposed to be turning constantly. Like, you look at the yin yang, it's a spinning wheel. Thing, it's just always spinning. And the way that they connect to each other is through those little circles, and how they are able to like balance each other and move it, keep it moving. And so the whole shadow work is like dissension. It's like descent, and that's, I think, what's happening this whole quarantine is the underworld is kind of coming up, and we're all going down to this, like, seeing what the world can be like when it's the underworld a little bit. Like, we're seeing it more we're seeing it more clearly.
The whole iceberg, tip versus the bottom, and
exactly the subconscious and our collective consciousness, which was one of his terms too, of like the collective memories, right? Like and it was all that stuff. That's part of what's I've been fascinated with these myths.
That's always stuck with me too, in terms of songwriting, and just like, I don't know if you agree, but I think, people have this conversation a lot, but I truly think the best songs and kind of ideas come spontaneously. They come effortlessly, and as soon as you try to harness that, put it in a jar, it's like that's when you write your worst stuff, and I don't know, I think when you write a song, it's just kind of you tapping into this common, like a hit or something, besides the fancy flashes in front of it, is really just this kind of this resonance, this like, I understand what is being said here.
Definitely.
Right? Like, communication is tough, and you can't always, say what you're trying to say. You can't always write. You can't always draw what you're trying to explain. And, sometimes a song is just like, that reminder that, we're much more similar than different, and that's what's like fascinating to me. Like, my dad, I forgot who he said, there's some like, Indian kind of yogi philosopher who says that that's kind of like what a song is. You're kind of like catching it in the wind. You're kind of like catching these ideas, and that's what, like, to me, a good song feels like. It's like, someone's like, "Oh, dude, that's a great song." You're like, "Yeah, like, I think I wrote it. I don't know. It kind of like
I was there.
Appeared." Like, it just like one thing led to another, and like I had a song, and like, I don't know, like going to the id and the ego and all that, and kind of the persona thing. It is always easier to kind of find those ideas when you're like removed from yourself a little bit, And I think I came up with a good comparison for you. I feel like you're kind of like a Clark Kent, right? You're like, you take your glasses off maybe, and it's like,
I can't see anything now.
No, it's Cullah. It's like, I don't know. It's
100% persona, man. Like you're saying, it's a that, and you mentioned the id too. The id is a Freudian part of the Freudian.
Yeah, we're combining some psychological terms.
But there's a lot of stuff that he reused in that. But I think, when it comes to Freud and Jung is definitely takes the cake when it comes to most of the stuff. Like, but Freud, of course, paved the way for a lot of things. But a lot of his work wasn't really like deep philosophical and alchemical like work. I think a lot of it was fueled by a lot of his own complexes and stuff. And I mean, same with Jung, but Jung like the whole time was like,
well, if I'm like this, everyone's like this.
Yeah, Jung would be like, I'm developing this complex. I can tell like by this and this. Like he was just like super hyper aware. But the persona is a really fucking interesting thing, because that's it's
almost like in between, or like,
no, it's the crust of the like,
it's like the protective layer.
It's the first layer between me and you of our psyche is a persona. In Latin, persona means mask. it's what it's like what Shakespearean actors and Greek actors would put on.
Yeah.
That's what they called, like, put on the persona. And so then they would act, and they'd physically have this mask, which would bring them the power to be able to
it's always like anyone will tell you, like, oh wait, I get to use a mask while I have to say these things in front of people. Like, it's gonna be, it's like, it's not you in a certain sense.
No, and that's what it is. Like the persona can be swapped out and stuff, and and I watched this. I have these lectures by Joseph Campbell, Campbell, who's amazing. Yeah. And he was talking about the difference between, and granted, this is a few years ago and things might have changed, and I don't know, but he was talking about how personas vary from culture to culture depending on whether it's more individualistic culture or more collectivist culture, and about how collectivist cultures are more persona than ego. And then, like, in individual cultures, it's more ego than persona. So, like, me and you, we can put on different personas and be like going from different place to place, different jobs, different ideas. I'm a brother, or now I'm a son, or now I'm a musician, or now I'm this, or now whatever. We can swap it out real nice, and it's like, it's like everyone's used to changing it, and the power of the Cullah persona is something that I'm like trying to understand more, and like start to give less fucks, because it's also like my family name, so it's like also part of me, but it's like
badass. It's got
something,
a ring to it, it's true. Simple. I mean, I think that's another thing of like going back to the touring. It's like just finding out,
Is someone calling me right now? Spam? How does it show up on my sound? That's so weird.
That's great.
I pressed end. This is definitely being recorded as part of the podcast. I apologize, everybody, for this. I pressed end. It's Google Chrome, I think. Oh my god. It's been happening sometimes. Did it stop?
I don't hear anything, so.
Oh, really? Okay, perfect. Well, maybe it's on that computer. No, but whatever.
Yeah,
it's problem solved.
Yeah, no, I think I think I was gonna say touring is like a good place to just kind of find, you do a solo tour and you figure out more about yourself and your music and your act, and kind of like, what does this all mean? It's weird.
You can sharpen the persona.
Yeah, it's weird. You have to travel like 1,000 miles by yourself. Like, you wish you could just sharpen your persona on the couch, but it just doesn't work like that.
No, you need some new energies.
I've definitely had, fellow musicians ask me, like, not in like a condescending way, but just kind of like, so what, what's touring like before you're like a big deal? Like, almost like, why do you do it? Like, when there's like not a lot of people at the show, and it's like, dude, I don't know, try it. Like, you'll see. It's like, it's kind of one of those enlightening experiences that like you can't really just like explain or like be like, it's like driving and playing music in a bunch of different places and meeting new people, and it's really fast and can be overwhelming in a really good way. It's hard to explain, but
well, if people are asking about why do you tour before you get famous, like, then I don't think they understand what touring is, because it's like, that's literally the ways to connect with people. Like, it's so you can have fans. Oh, that's the way I look at it. It's like, it's a necessary.
You have to start somewhere.
And everyone's got a different path. Not everybody's a performer. Like, some people are. Who's that Irish chick who sings in a castle? Enya.
Okay.
Not everybody's Enya. Like, Enya isn't
just monetizing a castle, monetizing castle reverb.
No, some people right. I mean, when you live in those countries where have castles, sometimes you could buy a castle. When you make Orinoco Flow and it's on like every commercial, you make some good money from that. Oh, but she's a terrible performer. It's from some I've seen. I shouldn't be talking too much shit, but like, because I love her music, but like, her music is so composed, and she said at this interview where she would have like hundreds of layers of her voice.
Jeez.
And that she would just mix them all down. You like, at that point, do you really hear it? But she was obsessed with that, and it's like, you can't duplicate that type of music live. You have to come up with something else. But
and that is,
Yeah.
I think that's a different story too. Like what the live performance versus kind of what, and I think the most entertaining performers are the ones that shock you and surprise you. You're like, and I think you do that well. I don't really know what I'm like, is this going to be like a up-tempo Cullah show? Is this going to be more acoustic? It's like, if you keep people on their toes, I think there's a lot of value to that, even though like your typical, kind of listener probably is like, well, I'm uncomfortable. This is different than what I'm used to, but like, I don't know.
I was in Madison once, and for my last year's tour, first little tour, Midwest tour, which is basically just Madison, Milwaukee, Minneapolis.
Yeah.
It's first good start. And in Madison, there was these hula hoop people that came to the show.
Yeah, kind of hoopers.
Yeah, and they were dancing along, and it was just like, oh, this is amazing. Like, we have a free visual show now. Like, this is like makes my job way easier.
Yeah.
Like,
it's always nice.
And I asked him, I was like, oh, and they're like, thank you for that type of music. She's like, it was so challenging and it's such a good way. It's like, because they're probably just used to jam bands, probably with just like 20-minute solo.
Yeah, it's like, it's like a different time change there.
Yeah, it's like, what? You stop and then you yell, and then you're like, oh, I really have to be on my toes and move with it. And I was just like, oh, so that's a way to approach that.
Yeah, no, totally.
How is this? Sleepstick says, how is the self like if they are in a collective society? I don't remember the lecture that he was talking about, but I think it's when you're in the collectivist, you're more identified with your role in society as opposed to your individual ego.
And just kind of desires and needs. You're just kind of always, you prioritize the collective versus...
Right, and there's a lot of people. There's a lot of like I've heard pros and cons for both things. Like it's a very challenging philosophical question.
If we're gonna go back to the like psychology stuff, I remember, I can't remember his first name, but Maslow hierarchy.
Sure,
of needs.
Maslow. Yeah.
I think that's kind of like
huge.
That's like a big thing this year, man. It's like people grabbing their toilet paper.
Yeah.
It's like you can see where they're. It's like. Clearly people are at like, what is the first one, like shelter? Is that like the kind of the different levels of like people aren't
definitely food, shelter.
That's what he says, right? Like other people are like last,
right?
It's like food, shelter, like, and that's his theory, but it's like I kind of can see that.
It's the hierarchy of needs.
It's like people just apparently, like I said,
we're pretty tribal. I think, and that's what it's interesting. Like we're programmed to be in small groups of people. Like we've evolved that way.
Yeah, like we enjoy the company and the socialization, but in a limited group, not an overwhelming kind.
And that's what's
quantity.
Bizarre about the information age and shit, and like all this stuff is because
so
like
your web of people is
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a question for you from Leo. What's up, Leo? It's my brother.
Hey, Leo.
He says, "What are the different problems that go?" He says, well, I'll ask this to you. What are the different problems that go with performing live and or recording in a studio? Like, how are those different to you? So how many records have you had?
I've done two records. I put out a record this year, and the project kind of started, it was like a touring thing. I was touring with Thompson Springs, a band I mentioned earlier. That was my only time I toured Europe, and I ended up in London where my sister was staying at the time, so I just kind of stayed with her, and there was a studio like I'd been meaning to like, okay, I'm gonna go stay with her and just kind of record, and there was a studio like 5 minutes from her place, so that's kind of how the first record came to be. And I don't know, it's interesting because like when I went into the studio, there's like Wurlitzer electric piano, like a Hammond, and like a drum kit, and I think like the sound of the first record, or of what people perceive as the sound of the project, is just kind of like a little bit of like where I was at the moment, and like what was in the room. So the arrangements could have varied a lot, and I think it depends. Like how much of a vision you have, you know. I think I found like whatever you try to do, it always comes out differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but the more you do it, the closer you're kind of like to like, oh, that was more like I had it in my head. But I don't know, I think you would agree with like, you know, projects where you're writing the music, recording, and kind of like, you know, maybe have different members come through for different shows. It's the whole live thing is definitely a different ball game to me. Like my songs are
like different city or different planet.
I don't know.
It's almost like different planet to me.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
totally different challenge.
Most of the songs I write, I start just on a guitar, so that's where the solo, like, I could play them all just on a guitar, you know, and that's, I think it started as like, here's the guitar, here's the song, like, let's build around that to, like, as I record and write more, I think it's more like, what is the arrangement as a whole, instead of like, you know, maybe start a song on a piano or something else, or, you know, but yeah, as soon as you try to like really, you know, hone in on a sound, or like, I want the live sound to sound exactly like this, I think you're always going to find that it changes in some way. So embracing that change is always best, you know, like I don't know, like the live show is, that's what I've come to realize too. Like you said, you know, from an entertainer standpoint, it's like, you know, it's sometimes more than just the songs. You could have a powerful song, but it's like, it's this experience that people are coming from, and honing in on that is kind of a whole nother game, you know, showmanship and like, you know, all that stuff.
That's something that I had some pretty, just, you know, starting to perform these last few years, is trying to figure it out, right? Because I remember hearing that on the radio. I think it was like MSOE. Someone was recording, or like they were interviewing some band, and I was like, the band who was on tour, they toured all over the world, and I was just like, I was in college or something, just like turned it up. I was like, whoa. Because they were like, what's the difference between recording and touring? And I had been recording stuff on my own, you know, but I was like, oh, I want to hear this. I turned it up. It's
important.
And that's what they said. I don't even remember who it was or whatever it was, but they were like...
He's like, just woke up from the van, like, yeah, I don't know.
Whoever it was, they were saying it's a completely different beast, I think is what they said. It's a completely different beast. And what you said is totally on point about it's experiential. It's not just you in a studio trying to find something inside you to be like captured in that moment, like you said, spontaneously. Like there's some quote by Arnold Schoenberg, I think his name. I don't know if Arnold is his first nname.
We'll go with
Schoenberg. You know Schoenberg. He's some guy, some German or French person, very important person. I can't remember much about him, but he has this quote that says like, a song comes to an artist in a spontaneous burst of energy, and then it's only after that you have to like demystify it and decodify what it is.
And depending on what you have,
and try to remember what it was.
It could change, you know. Like, yeah, I think that's super interesting.
And I don't think you can get that type. There's similar types of energies in a live performance. But the live performance is very much, in my experience, at least like the typical live, in this live stream studio type environment, it's different because I do feed off of like people's chats or people's interactions and stuff, which makes it a little nicer that I'm not just talking into a void. But in the live performance, like it's very much about the experience, like you said, and not just my experience, but the experience of the people, the audience. Like the audience is fucking key. And I remember my 2019 album, Spectacular. I had a like Cactus Club, and we had like, you know, it's basically sold it out. There's like 5 or 10 tickets left or something, and I was like so pumped and so like, oh my god, this is like the best feeling ever. Like Cactus Club, like it's full, jam packed, and. I just remember the like eureka moment when I was looking and seeing multiple like friend groups, like people I haven't seen in forever, and like, or like groups of friends that I knew each other, but they were there to like, they took it upon themselves to connect and come there for it. So like I realized that old adage of music brings people together, I was like, oh, like that's it. Like I am just this vessel, just as if I am the vessel for this music to come out of me. Mm-hmm. I am also this vessel to allow people to come together to experience a moment together, and that I'm just I'm their excuse for having this experience. Like totally. I'm not. It's not even about the music. It's not about like the notes I hit.
That's what I was saying. Things. Like with like, oh, I got this really good song. It's like it's not always about the song. It's like. Right. And it's not like, hey,
it could be technically the most perfect song ever, but it could be cold and sterile, and people could listen to it and be like,
yeah. I mean, and I'm not saying like you got to explain. Like everyone hates the guy who's like, hey, this song's about this every time.
Every time, yeah.
But sometimes I do that. Sometimes you have to prep the punchline. You can't just hit the punchline and expect it to make people laugh. No, like you know, and that's where the showmanship and stage presence and
I definitely
experience.
I've been chatting with the audience more and more and more and more as I've been performing more, and just like sometimes getting lost in those stories and being like, where was I going with this?
Where was I?
But I think because I noticed that there is psychology involved too. It's like I'll notice when I play a show and I only tell a story before two songs, from a whole hour or 45 minutes or even a half hour. After the show, the people come to me and they talk about those two songs.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it happened multiple times. And I looked it up and I was like, okay, is this? And I was trying to hear from other people's experience, and there was like, and trying to think about myself when I was as an audience member, right? And that's very much if you want to be a good showman or a good performer. What is it like to be in the audience? You can't ignore them. It's not just your show, right? It's everyone's experience. And some people were echoing the similar type of thing. And I was feeling that same thing as an audience member when they would say something about what the song was about. And then they went into it and I heard some of the words that they were saying and feeling some of the feeling. I was able to project a lot more and connect to have some more things to grab on.
And I think it's like everyone's taught, in school to be concise and can you get your idea across in less, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's obviously like those are the most powerful performers where like they didn't even need to like say it. They just did like something and everyone was like, oh yeah, I get what you're doing here. Well, this is badass.
Yeah, when everyone's on board with it, like maybe that's part of what your friend was saying about like, what's it like to tour before you're big? It's like, you kind of have to fucking like wrangle motherfuckers in, like when you're playing a bar and
go out on the street, hand out flyers. Like,
dude, I played a bar in St. Louis,
put and there one was of those inflatable like bar things, whatever you can to get people in the door.
I mean, well, once they're in the door, or they're the people who have been drinking all day at the bar, and then all of a sudden music's there, and they're like, "What the fuck? Fuck like, these guys!" And they're trying to watch the basketball game, I was in a bar in St. Louis there. Great, it was actually a great show. And this I like tease this guy who's obviously really drunk, but I think he said something, or I like made a joke, and then I was like still chatting, and then I like said it again before I went, and he laughed like a second time, and then like corrected me, but even though my joke was like a pun or something, and he like I was like, oh, it's an Edgar Allan poem, like or something, and he goes, it's Edgar Allan Poe. I was just like, you don't,
dude, come on.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. I was like, dude, really? And he's just like yelling at the screen.
No, it really is like a...
But wait. At the end of the show, he just gave us $50. He's just like, here you go. I think he felt bad because I called him out after. Like,
dude, he made up for it with that.
I was like, you can talk anytime you want, man.
Like, here's a couple stickers.
If this is the show... If you just interrupt me and then you pay me $300, like that's fine. I'll take that.
Yeah, man.
Especially on tour.
You're just like, yep. No, it's definitely a particular skill to kind of get a room.
People
like
take a whole lifetime.
It's a skill of like bringing everyone's, drifting thoughts into the same place. It's and weird. I think we've all as performers kind of said something that we thought was really cool to the audience, and it's just like crickets. You're like,
well, sometimes they hear it.
If I said that to someone personally, they would think that's cool, but I guess with a bunch of people in a room, it's not as cool.
It could be cool, but in their minds, and like in like
Well, what are you getting out of, like
audibly gasp?
Yeah, and there's
that's why making jokes is because correct me if I'm wrong, but as a musician, the bar for comedy is so low.
Oh, it is.
It's amazing.
I always say that if I wasn't a musician, I'd be a stand-up comic. That's what I would try to be.
Because I'm very interested in that too. I would love to do open mic comedy.
It's like all the parts of touring, but I don't have to carry anything.
Yeah, right. Dude, that's a great fucking point. But I think what I mean about the bar being low is I'll say shit that's not even funny. Not even trying to be funny. I'll just say something that's just a little, I don't even know. It's not funny. But then everyone will laugh, and I'll just be like, wow, yeah, you're that's all it takes.
I should have said that the first time, I guess.
Yeah. So now I just tell jokes all the time, and sometimes, yeah, and that's what got me interested in stand-up, because it's and I haven't done it, but
no, I haven't either. I'm all talk and
no walk. Once 2020, dude, that's funny because stand-up comedians, I played a show once at someone's house show, and they were like, oh hey, I knew the person who lived in the house that was hosting it, and they're like, would you like to just warm up the audience with a little set? I was like, sure, I'll sing my folk songs about death right before a comedy show, and I would do it, and the energy, I could feel the energy was good, and then I made a joke at the end. I was trying to be I was still really early in my performance, and I was still very much just don't say anything, just move from song to song, the songs speak for themselves, right. and it would everyone was respectful and stuff, and then some people went into the kitchen at my last song, and there was some refrain where I was talking about a child or something, and someone made a joke said something ridiculous in the kitchen that was very audible, and everyone in the crowd laughed to that. So I was like, fuck, I'm about to hit this pretty important part of this song, and the energy is totally not here. So I just repeated, I just changed the words of what I said to what they said, and just said it back. And you
stole the room.
And then everyone was like, oh my God.
That's great move.
It just can't. I was like, I have to do this. And then after the comedians were joking about how
great that was,
how their career, they're comedians and self-deprecating and stuff, but to be there was one where I was looking at a fan, it was really dirty, and I was like, oh, look at the fan, just putting my hands on it. They're like, no, don't do that. You're the only one in this room with a future. Shit like that. You're come on, your set was great.
Yeah. And you're funny at laughing at yourself.
Yeah, right. Down. So to me, I think it's the stand-ups look at the musicians and are terrified, and then the musicians look at the stand-ups and are terrified.
Yeah, because dude, I feel like a stand-up comedian will literally walk on stage he just got out of bed, literally just got out of bed, and just
hey man,
how's it going? And just 3 seconds later, I'm laughing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's people think musicians are rock stars and do that, but
2 hours to warm up. To if there's been a show where I'm not warmed up, it's half the show is garbage because my voice isn't even warmed up till halfway through. You know what I mean?
You got, and going back to, I think it was your brother's question, I think both live and studio preparation.
Tons.
If you don't go into the studio, if you think you're going to figure out the arrangements and the songs at the studio, hopefully you have a nice checkbook, because you're paying way too much money to figure out your songs, and
preparation. Yeah, for sure.
And that's, I think, almost, I guess it depends whether it's more important to prepare for something that's going to be recorded and last forever, or for just a moment in time that people might forget but still might be recorded. It's tough to say which is more important to prepare for, but
they're probably equally well. And that's the thing, is you can't prepare for those spontaneous moments in certain ways, but you can you yes and no. I'd say you can't, because sometimes you don't know when it's coming.
Yeah.
But the preparation of already being fucking primed, mm-hmm. and already being loose and being in a position to receive that, I think that's huge, because and maybe you feel the same way, but when I don't write or or record or anything for a couple months or whatever, when I go back to it, it's fucking rusty, dude. Just after a couple months.
Yeah, and I mean, I used to think, like I'm definitely an ear musician, and I've learned, like I used to take guitar lessons, but I've kind of the self-taught thing, and I think anyone in that position is kind of like, well, I rely on my ear, man. Like I don't need to practice, and but yeah, you do, and you definitely can notice that, and I think that's a huge thing of another reason why you should go on tour, because by day 17,
you'd be like, those fucking songs.
Whether it's you or with your band, you're like, wow, I couldn't have done this without, this whole experience.
Totally, dude.
It's like you use a screwdriver, you tighten the screws, but you do really need to like really tighten them to make sure they stay, and you can only get that certain ways, and fine tuning versus like just getting screw in. And
practice is super important, and that's the whole misnomer of genius or of talent.
Even Beethoven, he'd probably wake up and be like, oh, my fingers are not working
fucking
today.
Morning. It's probably just every day in, day out. I read this thing about there is talent, there is natural quote unquote talent, like, but it only helps you to a certain level of expertise. Like once you reach an intermediate level of learning anything, talent is out the window. There doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. It's reps. Mm-hmm. That's all that matters. Focus and reps.
10,000
hours to be a grandmaster or to be a master. And I think that's super true, because it's like my mother is a musician, and she like grew up with she's one of 17, and they're all musicians. And cool. So I like was aware of music, and my grandpa was like wrote poetry and shit, and he was like a gypsy, raised by gypsies and shit. So like there is some of that, like I grew up thinking about piano, seeing uncles play music, like knowing that's a thing, right? And so many people I can imagine
just don't have
they just don't even have that. There's no piano, there's no instruments, there's no anything. They'd be like, I want to play piano, or something. They'd be like, what is that going to cost me? Like $500 for you to play for a week? Like that's probably what I would think if I was a parent.
Yeah, no, it's important to have that encouragement, when you're young. And I definitely remember my parents always kind of being like, yeah, you should sing, or my mom putting me in choir, like extracurricular.
Yeah? So you came from a musical family then?
I mean, my parents,
they were just like, they understood the value of art or something.
They're really good at humming melodies, and they have the ear, but they never really like delve too far. Like my dad would go onto a piano and like start playing Fur Elise and like figure it out and like kind of play, but he's never like spent the 10,000 hours or whatever. So I do think genetics and that stuff has got to be in you somehow. And I definitely from a kid, I like melody and just like humming and singing was definitely like just something I like enjoyed. And I don't know, it's not to say you can't learn it, but it's like
some kids are born to
have and if you have parents or someone who's encouraging you to kind of use your mind in that way, it's only gonna grow, and once you get to like teenage years, it's on you to like, if you really want to do it and expand your mind in that way, you can. But
I saw this interview of this Mongolian band on NPR or something, or there was like tiny desk,
like throat singing kind of thing.
Yeah, they were doing throat singing.
Nice.
But they were interviewing him because, dude, like half these songs, this guy was making crazy like bird noises and like all this shit, and it was just like, what the fuck is this guy? Like, how can he make these noises? And they were interviewing him. They're like, how did you learn these noises? And he's saying that in his small community that he was growing up in, a small town in Mongolia, like super old like town, he was saying that kids would play and it was games. They would make noises as games.
Wow.
So like there was already this social fabric or like built to like encourage mimicking and like music and sounds and understanding. And he just says that it's just a natural thing that the kids that get really good at it who can just like own everyone and just be like, yo, I can make every fucking bird noise you want me to do. Like, and they naturally gravitate towards that. Whereas the other kids might try to participate, but they don't really, either they don't want to, or they don't, or they.
That's why it's scary for, public school funding. Like, first things to get cut are like music or art.
Oh, yeah. And that's on purpose, man.
If it's not there to be expanded, you can't blame the kid. If the kid doesn't have the parents encouraging him or the school encouraging him.
The evidence is very clear on how that affects your critical thinking skills, like how art affects how you can solve problems, your curiosity, your intuition, like all that stuff. Art, specifically music, like has huge implications on the development of the brain, like huge. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's by coincidence that those are the first things to go. It's like no one can make
mind expanding.
Like no one can make money off of someone who's thinking for themselves, right? Like, well, you probably could, but it's way harder, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean with like these. Maybe there's motherfuckers in a back room smoking cigars, being like protective of the. But my guess is it's more implicit, more subconscious stuff of like people realizing we can't have all these uppity musicians, like just questioning our shit, right? Like, yeah. Like, I mean, you just did a great cover of Blaze Foley. I saw that video of Oval Room, which I had first heard Blaze Foley. My cousin Shane, shouts out to cousin Shane.
Good job, Shane.
He was playing it in Denver. It was down in Denver years ago, and we were driving. He's like, I think you'd like this. Like, you like old. He's like, I usually don't like country music, but this is really good. Mm-hmm. And I was listening. I was like, okay. I was like, I wouldn't compared to like what country is
now,
which is just pop. I mean, now it's synths and like shake your ass, girl, in the club, getting drunk.
Wow, that's pretty good.
It's like
pretty accurate of it.
It's club music,
Yeah, it's top 40.
Dude, I just read that there's a thing called bro country, like a legit subgenre.
Wow.
Like there's a whole Wikipedia page.
And these songs make it on the radio.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Guess who was on the image on Wikipedia?
Who?
Blake Shelton.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah,
written by like 6 different guys at Warner Music, right? Like 6 guys are Frankensteining this thing and tell them.
The bridge needs to be this. Yeah. I mean, that started the Blaze cover. I started playing that about this time last year.
It's a good song. It's been stuck in my head now for forever, dude.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know, and like that's actually one of the songs that I played on that last tour I was talking about, where we went through Indiana and all that, and it was fun just playing it and just seeing people's reactions, and like to me the powerful part of a song too is like you can be attracted to the melody, like you're saying, it can get stuck in your head, regardless of what it's about, and like to me the song is to be taken as is, like people, political in nature is kind of unavoidable, but like he's really just kind of saying things how they are, and like whether you agree with it or not, that's another thing.
He's not documenting.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, that's you think of your classic like
anthropologists look at art to understand more about the culture than like what's actually written. You know what I mean? Like,
I believe it.
The art will tell you so much about what's going on. And what's fucked up about the Blaze Foley thing is because, like we were saying earlier about history repeats itself. Sleepsteak said that too. It's like it's the same story again. It hasn't changed. It's like businessman with business ties, all that shit. I'm just like,
it's gonna happen again, and
Blaze Foley is amazing.
It definitely he's the most badass. Like I would put it in the sense of like, that college professor that you go take an intro class and he's like, take things as they are. That's what he's doing. He's not telling you to do anything.
He's not vote blue.
Yeah, he's not.
Vote
he's
red.
just telling you like, these are the facts, you know, like I'm not saying anything beyond, you know, this dude's Reagan's a movie star, you know,
right.
He's got business ties. It's not, you know, it's not putting anything else on the table than it
very
is.
Very much, very American spirit. He's like definitely like very Woody Guthrie vibes, you know, like of just like, here's what's going on. Let me put it into the folk music that people can understand, that people can hear and they'll listen. Because especially, I mean, people know that shit. I mean, I don't know. You hear that stuff, and I don't know. It is definitely political, and where the politics and art and stuff. Like I think recently on Facebook, someone, and this is just Facebook, right? And it's nowadays, but like I was just like kind of like disappointed, but I wasn't surprised. But someone posted I posted a meme about like liberals or something, and it wasn't even that like damning or anything. It wasn't like disgusting or anything. It was just basically like calling out some hypocrisy and people who like are just accepting performative measures of their politicians and of their activists and stuff. I'm like, oh, performance is all we need. We just put the sign up and that's all we need, or put the, you know, that's it. And the person was like, the person responded or said something about, I liked this page when it was more music and not less politics. And I was just like, well, I've been writing music that's pretty political for a while, and like,
man.
And like all my songs, like there's songs that are specifically calling out certain societal issues or like psychological things, or specifically, like I wrote this one song in 2014 called "The Declaration of Independence."
It's true, man. As soon as you make it blatant or clear, people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it does make me think it's like
taps into their tribal thing. And it's like, no, that's my tribe. No, you can't make fun of mine.
Here we are amidst this crazy year, you know, these, you know, cries for change. And it's like, I don't know. I will say, like, to fellow artists, like, it's good to support a good cause, but like just changing a profile picture, putting, you know, a hashtag, like how are you going to use your art, you know, like if you really want to say something about it. I think that's like, it's the whole idea, right, between, you know, not that there's anything wrong with donating versus protesting, you know, but like
they're all parts of the equation. And that's the thing is, to me, when people are angry on social media, especially involve politics, what are you saying? Like, it has nothing to do with me, whatever this person's issues was clearly nothing to do with me. It was like, you know what I mean? It's just like
it's a common thing.
Just
many artists
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
shut up and dance, you know, like, it's like, dude, I'm not a monkey.
Yeah.
Well, I am, but not that type of monkey.
Yeah. It's like, do you want me to censor like what this music is about? Or do you want to like, you know, understand what it's
like
about?
In my songs, I don't say conservatives are this or liberals are this, you know, because those words are so triggering to so many different people, and it means things totally different contexts and totally different things. So like what Blaze Foley does, where it's just like, here's what's happening.
Yeah, it's just a song.
Or here's how I feel, or here's some things to think about, instead of like beating the drums of the tribal mentality or the nationalist mentality, or like, you know, it's just like, it's like I don't know.
It's just a little bit discouraging to me to think of like is this stuff more openly accepted? And obviously we're way ahead of like the 60s in a lot of sense, but it's like something tells me that it's like, I don't know, people have to take these calls more seriously, and like, you know, media, it's like, it's very easy for media outlets, publications, and bigger bands and artists to just like, just play it safe. Like you have these platforms where you can just completely, you know, it's that kind of balance of like, well, you're going to lose this you know, once you're a certain level of numbers, it's like, you're going to lose these people if you say something, you know, and it's like, dude, something tells me that artists back in the day, like they never lived to those guidelines, you know, they would just fucking do it. And
it wasn't cancel culture on in infinite amounts of information being transmitted in like, I have literally 4 screens in front of me right now. You know what I mean? Like there's tons of information, and I think that's part of it. And everyone's just so afraid. I think that was like the main thing. It's like everyone's scared and feels safe on there. But ultimately people and that's what I liked about the protesting. And actually what you said is exactly about how people using their platforms is exactly how I felt. But I had some major disappointment when the NBA, like when the Bucks were like, we're not going to play today because of Kenosha. And I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. Like, this is exactly what I want.
This is what people
and then there was like all this talks of,
like,
I mean, there's like only 5 games left.
You got the same guy who's like, I don't want to keep politics in basketball. You know, it's like, dude, you can't. These things are inevitable. Like, do you think I'm going to ignore what's happening?
Right.
It's
human
permeating
rights.
into my music. It's permeating into the basketball game. They can't play because they're not mentally there. You know, like it's
right.
I don't know. It's silly for people to think like.
Well, when that shit happened,
this idea of like turning things on and off, like, oh, there's a pandemic, but the baseball game's turned on right now. It's like, the pandemic's still happening. Like, you have to find that balance of like, yes, it's unhealthy to, you know, think about world problems too much, but it's not like I turn them on when I want, you know, like, oh yeah,
right,
not
exactly.
now. It's like you have to acknowledge them, you know.
Well, I was just disappointed because there's this moment where they could have been like they could have protested the rest of the season, which was like only a few games and then the playoffs. And they were talking about it, and then all the owners came and Obama came and was like, yo, no, you guys need to keep playing
ball.
Shut up and dribble is what Obama said to, like, a few years ago. He said that to what the fucking GOAT, what's his name? Not basketball person.
Are you talking about
the fucking heavy hitter, man?
Kobe?
No, he's retired now, right?
No,
Kobe passed people are going to be like so sad that I can't say this guy's name.
I'm not a big basketball guy, so
he's like
LeBron James.
LeBron, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so like
I got it.
Yeah, thank you. It was in there. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's there.
But yeah, I don't know.
Musicians.
Anyway. We've been chatting for 2.5 hours, so I think.
Really?
Yeah,
wow. That's incredible.
It's gone by pretty fast.
Yeah, I think we should probably call it then.
Yeah. So people can find all your music at sleepygaucho.com. It's also in the link wherever you're getting this. If you're listening to this or if you're watching this, go to sleepygaucho.com. Order some vinyl, right?
Yeah, that'd be
Vinyl is great. I've been just saying to people in shows, which is I made a big difference, I think, telling them explicitly that vinyl sales or like buying my merch is the best way, like, and because people don't know, they literally don't know. And so like
every time you bring it up, you know, share a link or something, it's like, oh yeah, maybe sell some, you know, it's like you have to keep on
at shows.
For the whole creative, you know, you have to get creative in this day and age.
And it's like, I don't know, you have to just embrace it if you're going to do it. Like selling vinyl is a way to make some money.
Hey, you ordered 300 vinyl, you signed yourself up for that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's half of it.
Get 300 more.
All right. Cheers.
All right, let's see if we can end this. But yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks Sleepy Gaucho for joining me. And I'm sure we'll have a great show on Saturday. Socially distant.
Can't wait.
All the veil between this world and the spirit world are definitely going to be the thinnest, and we're going to see some ghosts, hopefully.
Wow, I'm ready.
All right. Bye, everybody. Have a good day.